It all begins with our hero at a championship event. He's a prominent figure in the gaming scene, and today marks the moment he could claim his third world title. He stands there, pumping himself up for the imminent game. Suddenly, he's facing an army of hideous creatures, all staring at him as if he's some rare specimen. Two of these warrior figures spot him and start mocking the poor guy right away. One scoffs, "His name sounds bizarre," while the other critiques his appearance, calling him a shrimp. But just wait, it gets crazier. One warrior suddenly recognizes the guy next to him. This is the very same dude who ended his life. The other warrior stares as if he's seen a ghost, questioning if it's truly him. They glare at each other with fierce intensity, and Ty's like, "Oh great, I'm about to witness a murder." Their eyes blaze as if an epic duel is about to erupt, but then they burst into laughter instead. The deceased warrior chuckles. "I'm here because of you, my eternal rival." The other replies, "That fight was absolutely wild." Then, Baldi asks if he died right afterwards. He recounts how a kid with 5 braids ambushed him, stabbing him in the gut while yelling, "Dad?" The man laughs. "That kid's going to be a powerful warrior one day." The father puffs with pride, as if he already knows. Meanwhile, Taiho stands there, utterly confused in this testosterone-laden reunion. Suddenly, the story takes us back. Taiho was in the tournament, just one match from his third world championship title. Everything's going smoothly until he faceplants onto his keyboard. Now he wonders, did I really die, or is this the strangest fever dream ever, out of nowhere? Some guy points to him and declares he's the champion of countless duels. All the warriors turn to him, eyeing his scrawny frame with disbelief, thinking, how could this twig be the king of anything? A bunch of them are itching to test him, just wanting to see what gives. Poor Taiho feels completely out of his element, probably wishing he'd remained dead. He's cursing the girl who dragged him into this madness, remembering that exact moment when his face hit the keyboard. A strange light shone, and then the mysterious girl appeared. She starts rambling about how those who perish in glorious battles carry the spirit of true warriors. Tai's like, "Hold up, does that mean I'm actually dead?" Instead of a clear answer, she simply tells him to follow her. He asks if she's leading him to hell. A pretty reasonable question, honestly. But before he can bolt, she takes his hand, and they soar through a radiant tunnel, heading to Valhalla. Back in the moment, Ka struggles to grasp this insanity. Valhalla is that fabled realm of Norse mythology where only the toughest warriors are taken. He thinks the girl made a colossal blunder, assuming he's some legendary warrior just for dominating in gaming. Her naive, convinced demeanor is painfully obvious. Taiho attempts to clarify that she's mistaken. He's no warrior. He's merely a professional gamer. But she inquires if by games he means duels. At this point, you can almost hear his brain frying. He lets out a defeated sigh, pleading for her to take him back. But before they can untangle this mess, a thunderous horn reverberates throughout the arena. The girl yells that the enemy has arrived and everyone must prepare for battle. The warriors' eyes ignite, and in an instant, these warriors are primed for war. And Taiho, our protagonist, is on high alert. He's convinced he's going to die twice in a single day. Then the enemy appears and the warriors charge in without a second thought. They charge like wild beasts, clashing with these monsters in the most intense free-for-all imaginable. Meanwhile, Tai stands by, trembling, clutching a sword he has no idea how to wield. He's pondering, if I've already died once, what happens if I die again? Do I become double dead? But fate is not waiting for him to sort it out. One of these gigantic beasts zeroes in on him. It strikes with lightning speed, and all Taiho can do is freeze. Just as the monster was about to end him, a warrior dives in, shouting for him to duck. The warrior unleashes a fierce move called Deep Rage, or something similarly epic, and takes the beast down with a single blow. Taiho huddles with his hands over his ears. They surge forward like rabid maniacs, battling these creatures in the most intense free-for-all you've ever witnessed. Meanwhile, Tai was on the sidelines, quaking like a leaf. Grasping a sword he has no clue how to handle, he wonders, if I've already died once, what happens if I die again? Do I become double dead? But fate's not waiting for him to piece it together. One of these enormous beasts targets him. It strikes with blinding speed. And all Taiho can do is freeze. Just as the monster prepared to take him down, some warrior rushes in, shouting for him to duck. The warrior releases a brutal move called Deep Rage, or something equally brutal. Slaying the beast in one swift strike, Taiho is huddled, hands over his ears. The warrior executes this ferocious technique referred to as Deep Rage, or something equally intense, and pummels the beast in one blow. Taiho is cowering, hands over his ears. The warrior gazes at him, asking if he knows what a saga truly is. Taiho, of course, has no idea what any of this means. The warrior chuckles and begins to explain everything to our perplexed gamer boy. He states that being in Valhalla means Taiho achieved something incredible in life. Whatever you accomplish fuels your strength here. The more legendary your feats, the mightier you become. Taiho looks at this guy perplexed, thinking, what feats, dude? All I did was devour bags of chips and crush nudes in video games. But that memory strikes him. Cal spoke of the Immortal Warrior from his favorite Level Up Manhwa. This character possessed an absurdly long list of epic victories that would make Thor green with envy. As Taiho contemplates his character, a strange light begins to glow around him. He muses. Is that a system window? The warrior points out. Taiho's got his own saga now. Taiho looks ahead and notices glowing letters hovering in the air like a divine subtitle system. He squints at them, mentioning he can make out the letters but struggles to read them. Still utterly baffled, he deciphers a few words. Saga the Immortal Warrior, power 1%. Taiho starts to walk, his thoughts racing. This has to be Cal's power, he realizes. And his eyes gleam with that classic gamer ambition. If I can channel his power, I'll be the strongest here. Then the warrior calls out, urging him to look ahead. Taiho follows his gaze and queries what's unfolding. That's when he spots a gigantic, utterly fearsome beast wielding a hammer larger than Taiho. The creature strikes immediately. Taiho attempts to dodge, but trips over his own feet, dropping his sword like a complete novice. He scrambles up, sees the monster advancing, and thinks, no way, Karsted's power can't be this pathetic. The beast prepares to charge again, and Taiho steals another glance at the floating letters. There it is, that cursed 1%. Written so small it might as well be the fine print on some dodgy mobile game purchase, he exclaims. Why is this so tiny? Is this supposed to be a joke? Couldn't it be larger just before he leaves? The warrior introduces himself. He says his name is Jor and instructs Taiho to remain alive until they meet again. Now that the large figure has vanished, Taiho gulps hard, staring at this massive creature. He glances to the side, his sword lying helpless on the ground, feeling vulnerable, but he thinks, fine, 1% may not be much, but it's still better than nothing. Right time to test this. He sprints for the weapon, recalling how Khalid could take on hundreds of enemies without breaking a sweat. Even a sliver of that power should be enough to avoid a gruesome death. Right, clutching the sword with both hands. Taiho braces himself to confront this towering nightmare. The monster swings its hammer again, but something clicks. Taiho moves quickly, far swifter than before. He dives beneath the beast just in time, and as he rolls, memories of struggles flash in his mind. You can almost hear that crowd roaring his name. Then deep within, Kola's image flickers like a flame stirred by the wind. That's when his saga ignites. And man, it's as if someone plugged him into the Matrix. Everything shifts dramatically, and wild electric power surges through him like a tempest. In the next moment, he zips across the battlefield and cleaves the monster's head in one smooth stroke before returning to his usual clumsy self. He lands hard on the battlefield, now sitting there contemplating. So is this the saga Bjorni mentioned? He rises, convinced that with this ability, he'll definitely survive. The scene shifts to the Great Hall, where warriors gather. A grand celebration is underway. A feast buzzing with excitement as everyone enjoys themselves thoroughly. Those two rivals from earlier sit side by side, laughing like old friends. One boasts of surviving the fight, while the other smirks, deeming it merely a warm-up. At another table, Tango voices his complaints about the food. Bjorni explains that if Taiho desires better food, he must rank up. This hall is reserved for rookie warriors. Low rank signifies basic food. No frills attached. Taiho asks if he too is a low-rank warrior. Jor chuckles and tells him he's merely here to check on him. Taiho exhales deeply, thanking him genuinely, expressing that without his help, he wouldn't be standing there breathing. Jor responds with a half-smile and shakes his head. Taiho is urged to relax. Just try not to meet his end next time. But before he can finish, Taiho inquires about what happens if he actually dies here. Bor chuckles as he clarifies that dying in this realm means your soul becomes one with the warrior of steel. Once that transformation occurs, pain and hunger will cease, and the fight goes on eternally. Bjorni asks Taiho if that doesn't sound enticing. Taiho freezes, ultimately thinking it sounds utterly dreadful. The Iron Warrior seems more like a cursed steel coffin than a prize to him. He gulps, resolutely thinking, there's absolutely no way I'm dying here. Bjorni quickly changes the subject. He informs Taiho that soon his allegiance will be revealed. Taiho queries its meaning, and Bor elaborates. Every warrior gets placed into teams, and that's happening right now. At that moment, a strong blonde girl strides in. Fully armored, she stands tall and announces she has witnessed their skills. And now they will each be assigned to a legion. Taiho turns to Jor, asking if that girl is a Valkyrie. Jor affirms, saying she is called Reginin Leaf, daughter of Odin himself. Hagen lifts her sword dramatically, commanding the group to gaze into their goblets. She declares that the name they see will be their destined leader. Taiho stares into his cup, utterly baffled. Bjorn explains they'll each fall under the command of one of the gods from Asburn, and that god will elevate their power. Taiho returns his attention to the goblet, pondering that the only Norse gods he knows are Odin and Thor. If he's to be stuck with someone, they better be a force to reckon with. When Taiho finally sees the image emerge, his hopes shatter to pieces. It's a girl, attractive for sure, but nothing like what he expected. He's likely thinking, Where's my Thor? Where's my Odin? What is this? The scene transitions, revealing Taiho in a small boat drifting down a tranquil river. The girl rows leisurely while Taiho prepares for a massive mental breakdown. He thinks, they said these are divine teams, so why the hell am I alone here? The girl notices his discontent and inquisitively asks why he's been acting strange since they started. However, before he can delve deeper into his self-doubt, she interrupts. She tells him their team has strengths that could match any other. Despite his overwhelming skepticism, Taiho begins to wonder if that might hold some truth. She continues, no one above them can interfere, and no one below can stir havoc. This place is a paradise. Suddenly, our boy is back in the hall. He stares at his goblet with the name Iban inscribed while everyone else cheers for names like Odin and Thor. He's literally the only one who received a name that nobody recognizes. Jor's reaction back then didn't do much good either. He tried to boost his spirits, urging him to stay strong. As the ceremony moved on, team leaders called the names of warriors to join their ranks, forming lines everywhere. Taiho stood there, unsure who was supposed to lead this Idun team he's apparently become a part of. Then, he spotted the red-haired girl slouched in a distant corner. This was the Idun team leader. Not knowing what else to do, Taiho approached her. When he mentioned he was joining her team, her expression was one of sheer surprise. She stated he was the first rookie to show up in quite some time. She added they hadn't had anyone fresh or youthful in years. Amidst all this, only one thought crossed Taiho's mind. You're way too close for comfort, lady. She then introduced herself as Hela, back to the present in the boat. Helda studies Taiho, clearly trying to decipher his thoughts. Finally, Taiho breaks the awkward silence. Questioning what they are fighting to protect and the reason behind it, Helda unfolds a map. She points, stating their current location is Asyond, and beyond the lands ahead lies Muspel. She explains Muspel is inhabited by giants, dark gods, and demons. Taiho points to a red mark on the map, asking what that area signifies. Helda follows his finger, stating it's Eren, a realm that's been utterly shattered. She elaborates that their team stands on the front line. Due to this, they face an enemy intent on obliterating the entire world. Taiho examines the map, deep in thought. Something about it resonates with a game he once played. He asks if this whole ordeal is Ragnarok. Helda nods, affirming it. She states, while the battle is to safeguard the world, at its core, it's a fight for survival. Taiho wonders if there's a way to traverse between worlds. A flicker of hope lingers, urging him to seek a way back to his gaming setup and old life, but before he can inquire further, Helda proclaims their arrival. Tigo gazes at the colossal door while Hela reveals it's the temple dedicated to their goddess. Now, as her champion, Tio must pay his respects. They step inside the temple. Tio's gaze sweeps over the vast architecture, clearly struck by its grandeur despite the circumstances. He wonders if he will meet the goddess face to face. Held chuckles softly, replying, meeting the goddess in person is impossible. She assures him he will encounter her, but only from afar. At the end of the corridor stands a magnificent statue of the goddess. On the floor lies a circle etched with a tree image that draws his attention. Held hands him a golden apple, instructing him to approach the altar and make an offering. Tio takes the apple, moves toward the tree symbol, and hesitates for a moment. Finally, he hurls the apple forward, thinking, no idea what's about to unfold. As the apple strikes the ground, the circle and tree erupt in a blinding glow. Taiho has to shield his eyes. The atmosphere shifts dramatically. The statue awakens, her voice resonating through the temple, greeting Taiho as her new warrior. When his eyes open, the carved tree on the ground is now a real golden, vibrant entity. Taiho immediately kneels before her. The goddess smiles, stating, just as water flows downward, a human's deepest reverence is expressed through kneeling. She places her hand on his head, saying, he will receive a blessing. Golden light cascades from her hand, enveloping Taiho entirely. A surge of overwhelming energy fills his body. In that instant, he acquires the mark of the guardian of life and youth. Taiho realizes his entire form radiates with light. He feels strength blooming within him. Suddenly, he declares that all the chronic pain from his pro-gaming days, his back, hips, neck, and digestive issues are now absent. Once the blessing concludes, the goddess smiles, expressing eagerness to witness the feats he will accomplish. Taiho's eyes fly open, and he's back in the real world. Helden appears beside him, helping him up, proclaiming he's officially blessed by the goddess. She explains that Dun is the goddess of immortality and youth. With her mark, Taiho can endure the harshest pain during battle, no matter how brutal things turn. He now possesses divine protection. But our boy hears none of that. He's too busy thinking how the goddess is far too perfect for his liking. Held continues, elaborating that he now holds the blessing of life. There's little risk of dying anymore. In fact, as time passes, the strength of his blessings increases. She laughs, adding, that's why people refer to their team as the zombie team. Taiho, however, raises an eyebrow and quickly inquires, "If I eliminate all the foes, is there a chance to return to my world?" As she helped him stand, she mentioned that if the war concluded as he hoped, if they truly emerge victorious, perhaps that could be a possibility. Since this was likely the first time he held a girl's hand, he dashed past conventional thoughts and leaped into delusional reveries. Taiho imagines a future where he marries Hilda, living harmoniously in a serene home after a long day. He'd return to find her waiting in the kitchen like some domestic goddess. In his daydream, Held smiles tenderly, feeding him with her own hands. But reality rears its ugly head the moment he bites into the food. Its texture resembles that of an old boot sole, as our boy snaps back from his fantasy. Hela regards him with concern, asking if he's all right and if the meat's too tough. Before he can answer, she tries to reassure him, saying that soon enough, things will improve if they strive hard and ascend the ranks. Better times are ahead. Yet our boy just experienced a harsh reality check and slides back into his daydream. He envisions Hilda encouraging him to be patient while cradling their baby by a peaceful river. Then, reality smacks him once more. A system notification displays, warning that his illusions are reaching critical levels the following day. Hilda decides to revisit everything to ensure this fool comprehends it. She clarifies that every enemy he defeats rewards him with runes. Taiho asks if that red energy he felt after vanquishing those monsters aligns with that. Held nods, confirming that due to that battle, he likely already possesses some runes amassed. She explains he can spend points to unlock new abilities and become stronger, boosting physical strength, mental fortitude, endurance, agility, and mana in the Level Up Manhwa. Curious, he asks what mental fortitude and mana even do. Helmet clarifies that mana enhances magical offense and defense, while mental fortitude sharpens his focus and strengthens his resistance to psychic attacks. Taiho then inquires if mana can also amplify his saga. Held responds, "Sagas are special. Strength grows not only through actions, but also through belief, especially how many people know and trust the story." She adds that sometimes sagas grow so immense they can warp reality itself. She continues that lower-ranked warriors often receive basic saga boosts to speed or strength, but legendary sagas can create weapons from thin air, transform the warrior's appearance, or even summon entire armies. She locks eyes with Taiho, stressing he must remember one crucial fact. The potential of his saga and how far it can extend hinges entirely on him, as she declares this. He recalls the saga of the legendary brave knight Kelsted. Suddenly, a massive bell tolls. Held immediately recognizes it and stands up, telling Kai it signals the call to battle. Cho, taken aback by the suddenness, asks if it's actually starting already. At that moment, a strange portal materializes before them. The scene shifts, revealing Tai clad in new armor, a shield securely fastened to his back. Held stands beside him, making final adjustments to his attire. Meanwhile, the fool remained grinning like an addle-brained child as he prepared to step through the portal. Hela reminded him to take care and avoid dying. Taiho smirked and replied, "Didn't you say it was tough to die, so wish me luck." He stepped into the portal, and as he crossed into the world beyond, awe washed over him. The area swarmed with people. As a certified introvert, I can attest it's never a pleasant sight. Suddenly, a force hits his shield, turning around in disbelief. He spots Jor laughing, declaring they've reunited and that Taiho looks far more impressive now. He grins, asking if Taiho's Valkyrie is beautiful, chuckling more, adding that honestly. All Valkyries are stunning, aren't they? Before Taiho could respond. Jor seizes his shield, giving him a gentle shove toward the formation, urging him to hurry and informing him today's battle will be different due to having a commander this time. All the warriors lined up, while our boy stood alone, looking foolish. The commander asked if Taiho was Idon's warrior, before commanding him to the back of the line. Without wasting any breath, he presented himself to the legion. This fellow was Ragnar from Heimdall's legion. He informed the army that today's mission involved reclaiming territory lost to the Endless and reopening the gate. Declaring, as always, that he'd lead from the front, the army eagerly rallied, ready to follow this leader into battle. In a heartbeat, they found themselves on a snowy battlefield. Taiho spotted a creature on the hill, but before a warning could be shouted, it leaped down, shredding through everything. This beast wasn't an ordinary mob, it was the boss. White Fang. Ragnar roared for an assault, but the beast nearly annihilated them with one swing, leaving Taiho cursing the fool who opened this cursed portal. Then everything went deathly silent, with Taiho locking his gaze on White Fang, wielding that colossal hammer, thinking, "This is it, game over." Man, yet he fought to remain composed, telling himself it felt just like battling a boss in a video game. He realized one hit from that hammer would turn him into mush. Eyeing his small shield, he muttered, "Yeah, this won't do anything." He tossed it aside. Pouring his 5 runes into agility, his senses exploded into sharp clarity. As the hammer came crashing down, Taiho dodged perfectly. The wind whipped past his skin. Yet he still stood. The other warriors erupted with cheers. relieved that finally someone didn't get flung into next week. But Tegel realized that dodging alone wouldn't secure victory in this fight. A voice commanded everyone to attack White Fang's legs to bring him crashing down. Yet, with a single swing of that hammer, a warrior was sent soaring into the sky. Without hesitation, White Fang lifted the hammer once more. At this moment, Taiho declared, "Forget it. One option remains." He activated a move known as Warrior's Mission, the storm that granted him insane speed, instead of merely running in circles. He propels himself into the sky. In midair, he recalls Helda urging him to survive and how desperately he must escape this chaos. Frustrated, he berates the narrator for painting his life like a tragedy, demanding it to ditch the death warnings. He amplifies his storm ability beyond its limits, funneling all that speed into his feet for a devastating blow, and everything that happened next became a dizzying blur. Getting back on his feet, he questions if he's still alive upon spotting his sword lodged deep in White Fang's eye. Taiho realizes this is his moment to finish him. However, the catch is he lacks a weapon. He unleashes his newfound ability. The warrior's sword conjures a fresh blade for him. He launches into the air and strikes down the boss. Switch to a cosmic figure known as Razgrid, poised at the edge of space, meticulously controlling a chessboard. A raven appears as she declares, "We've triumphed," thinking she's speaking to Odin, but it's actually Hugin, Odin's messenger bird. It inquires if any new warriors impressed her. Yet, he prepares himself for disappointment, as most were low rank. She concedes one warrior garnered her admiration, the one who battled the beast. Back on the battlefield, Tyler stands victorious over White Fang's corpse, sword in hand as the crowd erupts in Odin's name. The scene mirrors his glory days in gaming tournaments, filled with cheers and applause. Then, he glances at his weapon, a chill creeping over him. It's the very sword from the game he knows. It was once rare but became common and feeble. He resolves to keep basking in those cheers to grow stronger. He raises his blade in salute to the warriors when Jor touches his shoulder. Jor praises his performance, acknowledging that evolving his saga mid-battle is no small feat. Tivo expresses gratitude, attributing his success to Jor and Held's assistance. Jor is amazed that Tio can now summon a sword out of thin air. Tio chuckles, stating it's new for him as well, but now he can summon it at will. By this point, our hero felt utterly drained and wished to head back. Yet, Jor delivers harsh news they aren't going home. He gestures toward a fortress in the distance, declaring it their next target. They'll be camping until they conquer it. Later that night, Taiho collapses in his tent, utterly drained. He can't fathom all that transpired in just one day, staring at his hands. He reflects on Jor's lesson about sensing his saga. He accesses his system window and sees synchronization has climbed to 5%. He's undeniably growing stronger. He now possesses 2 saga slots and ponders if combining them is possible. In his thoughts, a warrior barges into his tent sporting a peculiar grin, announcing someone searching for him. Tio steps outside to find all the warriors assembled, each one wearing that same odd expression. He queries what's the matter when he spots Hela lounging by the bonfire. He feels bashful just seeing her. The scene shifts to 5 minutes prior, revealing Helda weeping on the ground, profusely apologizing to our boy. She then asks if he can reveal his sagas to her. As she glances at the list, sheer panic floods her because it's filled with an array of astonishing achievements. The girl sobs, lamenting her past arrogance, never realizing he was this formidable hero. Meanwhile, Tios tries soothing her, but she persists in her tears, pleading for forgiveness for having called him a rookie. Tai is left standing there, thinking, she's irresistibly cute like this. I can relate. Dude, seeing her so flustered. Taiho decides to share everything, revealing how he achieved all this within the virtual realm. Held gasps loudly enough for probably half the camp to hear her exclaim, "All of that was in a game." Tao confirms it all occurred in a virtual world, not reality. She ponders and claims she somewhat understands, but adds he still accomplished those feats, making it remarkable in her eyes. Then, Tigo engages in an internal debate about whether esports qualifies as real sports, envisioning everyone wanting to become gamers to dodge military service. The dude's mind wanders into a wild tangent about societal collapse through the lens of competitive gaming. Held snaps him back to focus, addressing the topic of sagas. She explains that ordinarily there are no limits, but in his current condition, he can only acquire one more saga. Held snaps back to reality. Speaking of sagas, she mentions there's usually no limit, but in his current state, he can only have one more saga left. Taivo weighs his choices, contemplating his next move carefully. An offensive approach crosses his mind, but he instantly dismisses it. He settles on Dragon Eyes, craving the ability to perceive it all. His eyes radiate an eerie blue glow as he bellows loudly, startling Hilda in the process. Testing his newfound sight, he realizes everything he's seeing is remarkably clearer now, though the strain nearly takes his life. Hilda advises him to recuperate and begins to leave, but pauses to embrace him, declaring that having him on their team is pure luck. Poor Tai is left stunned by the sudden affection, fearing the tent might collapse from the impact. After her departure, a fellow named Ralph from Team All arrives to escort Taiho to an assembly. Taiho sports a helmet now, likely trying to conceal his glowing dragon eyes. Ralph discloses that he's part of a unified unit and calls for everyone to converge at Ciri's base. Taiho activates his dragon eyes to evaluate this man and confirms his authenticity, while discovering he's dubbed the Wolf Hunter. But his new vision reveals more than he anticipates. He panics and swiftly averts his gaze. As they stroll, Rolls laments. Envying Taiho for having been graced by a Valkyrie's visit, he muses that if it were him, he would flaunt it to everyone. Tito feels a swell of pride, imagining it as a brush with stardom. He then inquires about the perks of Team All, and Ralph explains they can select between invisibility and target tracking, demonstrating. He vanishes right in front of Taiho and then rematerializes, upon reaching the new camp. Taiho encounters the unit leader, a sturdy woman with striking blue hair, a rarity in Valhalla, as the only other ladies he encountered were Valkyries. The leader emanates a formidable aura, prompting Taiho to recognize her immense strength surpasses every warrior he's faced. Her title is the Manhunter. Suddenly, a light bursts through the sky, leading everyone to assume it's yet another Valkyrie, but it leaves Skrid taken aback once more. Taiho identifies her, utilizing his dragon eyes to reveal her service under Odin. Titled Ice Princess, Skrid steps forward, declaring Commander Rayos has met his end, leading to the merger of his unit with Ciri's. She unfurls a scroll and proceeds to distribute the rewards. Since our hero was the one who brought down that beast, he receives the entire haul. Gold coins, a rune, and team points flash before him. Although he fights to keep a neutral expression, his mind dances with joy, envisioning himself as a living legend. However, he overhears other warriors murmuring and mistakenly believes they're lauding his triumph. Instead, they're only discussing how fortunate he is that Hilda visited him. Honestly, the guy defeats a massive monster and saves the whole group, yet their focus is solely on his visitor. Razgrid silences the crowd, declaring their mission to seize the fortress tomorrow. The strategy is uncomplicated. They'll employ steel rains. At her words, the crowd erupts in cheer as if she'd announced a feast for all. Taiho tries to join in the excitement but has no clue what steel rain signifies, turning to Rolf. He receives a candid response that even Rolf doesn't know. The following day, Razgrid soars over the battlefield, signaling the assault's initiation. Warriors surge toward the fortress like a relentless horde, moving with a cohesion that defies their appearance, just as they're noticed. Another colossal creature emerges. This one's known as Red Eyes. Amidst the chaos, Ciri elaborates on Razgrid's grand strategy. The primary army will divert the enemy at the gates while her unit scales the walls, entrenches itself in control rooms, and opens the fortress from within. She hints that steel rain will be used to breach the walls. Ralph, visibly excited, rambles on as though he's an expert on the matter, but Taiho shoots him a wary glance, knowing he's just as clueless about steel rain. Taiho is still contemplating if it's some form of teleportation or magic assault. Suddenly, he finds himself inside what resembles a gigantic beer barrel. Then it strikes him like lightning. Steel rain means they're literally being launched in metal barrels toward the fortress walls like living cannonballs. Ralph queries if he feels the thrill, to which Taiho retorts, "You have to be joking. Dude, what's there to feel thrilled about?" Nearby warriors cheer, yelling things like, "I'm headed to Valhalla meanwhile." Taiho's probably mulling over, "Aren't we already in Valhalla? Did you miss the orientation?" The battle horn blares, and their barrel starts moving. They load into massive cannons, and inside the barrels, the scene is a mix of chaos and anticipation. Some warriors scream in terror, while others revel in excitement, readying themselves for combat. The barrels crash through the walls, and everyone tumbles out, looking like they just survived a car wreck, groaning about aches, bitten tongues, and questioning their decisions. Taiho is merely thankful to still be alive. Ciri arrives, urging them to prepare, warning that trouble approaches. They glance ahead, spotting a massive creature with enormous claws escorted by giant insects, moving in perfect synchronization. Ciri explains these insects operate in groups of 5, and by eliminating the leader, the others fall into disarray. A warrior asks how to distinguish the leaders when they all appear identical. That's when Taiho recalls his newly acquired Dragon Eyes ability, activates his enhanced vision, identifies the boss bug, and points it out to Ciri. Without hesitation, she zooms in on the target while Tio starts naming other leaders based on their obvious traits: the swift one, the striking one, the renowned one. He's practically a living strategy manual. With each leader taken down, the remaining bugs begin to retreat. But then, another horn blares, signaling the arrival of the next wave. Ciri divides the team. She'll hold the front with her crew while Ralph leads a team to the control rooms. Before they depart, she instructs Ralph to take Taiho along and locks eyes with him, stating she's counting on him. Ralph's group consists of just 4, 3 of whom can vanish into thin air. Taiho lacks that skill, so Ralph advises him to stay close, They sneak away from the main battle, and Ralph reveals he knows a secret path. He places his hand on a stone, revealing a hidden passageway. They plunge into this shadowy tunnel, with Ralph illuminating the path with a torch. Suddenly, Taiho walks straight into gigantic spiderwebs, gasping in panic, tearing the sticky threads from his face, glancing around. He notices this corridor hasn't been used in ages, yet they press on. The group continues forward, but Taiho is illuminating the way when a massive spider lazily lounges on the ceiling, eyeing them like a meal. Ralph warns everyone to be vigilant, and they all attempt to tread lightly when a chilling chittering noise draws near. Taiho looks up just in time to witness the spider snatch a warrior with its fangs and yank him off the ground. Taiho shouts a warning, but everyone is already paralyzed, watching as the beast devours their comrade. Strangely calm, they comment on the spider's unusual size, suggesting it must be starving to devour someone that swiftly, commenting on the poor guy's grim fate. Taiho activates his dragon eyes, realizing they're in grave danger. It's not one spider, there are dozens creeping in from all directions. He tells Ralph they are completely surrounded. The spiders close in, and Taiho fights to stay focused. He scans them with his ability and discovers they paralyze prey with venom and also identifies their weakness. He invokes a runic fang effect that ignites his sword and slashes at the ceiling, incinerating all the webs and spiders in one strike. He yells for everyone to flee, and they don't need to be told twice, as they sprint away. Ralph asks if Taiho is some sort of mage. Another warrior worries about leaving the sword behind. But Taiho nonchalantly claims he'll just forge another one, using his dragon eyes. Taiho leads them through the tunnels until they spot a door. Rawl states, "This is it." Rushing them inside, Taiho leads the way, followed by another warrior, but the last man hesitates, allowing a spider to slip through. Now it's 3 against 1 spider in tight quarters. Rawl and the other warrior struggle to wrestle the door shut while Taiho draws a new sword, taking down the spider with a single, clean strike. Everyone gasps for air as though they just completed a marathon. Taiho inquires if this is truly the control room, and they proceed to the center. Ralph confirms it's the emergency control chamber. It's clear why it was tough to access. Being super secret means no guards. Ralph retrieves a circular key and inserts it into the main device, stating they must unlock the gate to rescue their comrades. The key activates, unleashing a blinding light and a mechanical voice declaring, "Emergency control key recognized." Suddenly, a girl descends from above, introducing herself as Black Caster, asking how she can assist. Ralph and the other warrior stand there, wide-eyed, while Taiho thinks, "Weren't we in a rush just 5 seconds ago?" He urges Ralph to snap back to reality and converse with the AI girl. Ralph prompts her to unlock the fortress gate, but she mistakenly starts to open the wrong door behind them. After correcting her, Ralph announces their mission was a success and suggests they chill with the girl while they wait for their army to capture the fortress. Just then, the AI girl alerts them that someone approaches. Something enormous is drawing near, and Taiho is filled with dread, questioning how anything could breach that solid metal door. Rawl mentions there were countless spiders outside, but Taiho realizes whatever this is has already eliminated them all. The door explodes open and Red Eyes storms in, radiating fury. This beast growls threats, proclaiming he will eradicate them right here. The trio stiffens because when a massive monster crashes your party, it tends to paralyze you. Taiho powers up his warrior sword, Saga, charging forth with thoughts of Helda. Ralph and the other warrior follow. But Red Eyes is impossibly swift. He twirls his hammer with insane speed and utterly decimates the warrior beside Taiho, launching him into the wall with a force that fractures the stone. The monster, puzzled, asks where the little one went just as Taiho plunges down from above, wielding his Storm Saga aimed straight for Red Eye's skull. However, the beast spots him, drops the hammer, and readies his claws. Taiho realizes too late this was a trap. Red Eyes had been anticipating this very move. Mid-air, the creature captures him, delivering a devastating tombstone pile driver straight into the ground. Rawl screams in horror as the floor caves in, leaving Taiho motionless. Suddenly, Taiho finds himself floating in the sky, bewildered by this strange sensation. When he opens his eyes, he is blinded by light. He fears this is death. Then he notices Red Eyes is about to stun him. He thinks, now I'm really done for. Meanwhile, Ralphie stands firm, bow drawn, and unleashes a flaming arrow that wraps around the monster. The beast howls as fire consumes its flesh, while Ralphie shouts for Taiho to hold on. The monster whirls in rage, vowing to obliterate that pesky fly. For a moment, it oscillates between targeting Ralphie and Taiho, unsure whom to take down first. That's all the time Taiho requires to play dead. Lying still, he knows if he even twitches, he's finished, so he remains perfectly motionless. The monster opts to ignore the still figure and lunges at Ralphie, who is bracing himself to fight to the end. Meanwhile, Taiho, still on the ground, feels fire surging through his body as every inch aches. Yet something within him roars, insisting he is still alive. He rises, and Red Eyes remains oblivious. Taiho disregards the agony, reactivates his storm power, and lunges forward, cleanly severing the monster's manhood. Witnessing this, even Ralph gasps. Yo, dude, that's a bit excessive, and advises him to end that poor creature's suffering. Taiho approaches slowly, mumbling an apology before activating his warrior sword Saga. Unexpectedly, something extraordinary happens within him. His hands illuminate, and a colossal metal hammer materializes as the system joyfully proclaims he has unlocked a new saga called Skull Crusher. Taiho slams the hammer down with such force it trembles the entire chamber. Ralphie and the third warrior rush over, and the latter shouts in exhilaration that Taiho has truly done it and Indu has triumphed. Ralphie gazes at Taiho, still absorbing what just transpired, when another notification appears, stating Taiho leveled up and his costed sync is now at 7%. They then hear news that the Black Fortress has been secured and Valhalla has emerged victorious. Ralphie and the others engulf Taiho in a massive group hug, exclaiming that the war has ended. So the legendary Red Eyes, the enemy army's final boss, is vanquished by the kid nobody anticipated anything from. Switch to the battlefield where a warrior named Brax holds aloft the head of the last boss monster. With that, this siege concludes successfully. Meanwhile, high above, the Raven observes it all, seeing Brax in action. He ponders why Riscreed appears far more interested in our boy, back at the celebration. Ralphie carries Taiho on his shoulders as warriors chant his name, for the once underestimated kid just achieved the impossible. A Valkyrie announces it's time to revel, and everyone erupts with joy as the brutal eras are officially behind them. Taiho steps aside from the crowd, gazing up at the sky when Ralphie inquires if he's all right. Taiho groans in agony, and Ralphie remarks he's fortunate to be alive. He looked lifeless, sprawled out there. Before Taiho can retort, Ciri appears, her smile radiant. She inquires if they'd like a drink from her. Without hesitation, Ralphie answers enthusiastically. It'd be an honor, and he's always dreamed of sharing a drink with her. Taiho notes Ralphie's bold flirting in broad daylight, but more warriors gather, eager for drinks from Ciri as well. She opens a barrel, pouring drinks while loudly toasting to Valhalla. Meanwhile, R attracts a crowd, recounting the battle with vivid detail, reliving the spider fight, the chaos, and most notably, Taiho's notorious war crime against the Red Eyes family jewels, as he narrates. Every man in the room feels the poor bastard's pain while our nutcracker of Valhalla simply watches passively. His gaze drifts to Ciri, who laughs freely, completely unconcerned. He's thinking. She truly knows how to flash that smile. The party escalates, with bizarre references flying that none understand. Then, the dwarves begin acting strangely, which is saying a lot considering how drunk they already are. That's when Razgrid appears, informing Taiho of a visitor. It's the stunning Helda, prompting cheers and remarks from the warriors. As Taiho and Helda stroll off together, they hear shouts like, "Seize the moment, kid!" and envy echoes in the air. The dwarves attempt to revive the party spirit, but Razgrid squashes it, insisting that everyone get some rest. An important mission awaits at dawn. Cut to morning, and all the warriors gather. Taiho looks like he's been run over by a truck, yawning as if sleep was a distant memory. Naturally. He's an easy target for interrogation, Ralph asks, eyes wide, if he had a good time last night. Another warrior wonders if it was an all-nighter. A third guy grins and asks, "So did you enjoy yourself, boy?" Taiho, clearly embarrassed, offers a sheepish smile, claiming he can't spill the details, it's a secret. Before the teasing escalates, Ciri arrives for the mission briefing. She states, "Today's mission is special. We're breaching the eastern side of the Black Fortress, specifically targeting the old dwarven mines when enemies seized the fortress. The dwarves sealed the mines and vanished. No one has heard from them since. So our task is to investigate and evaluate the situation." Taiho asks Rolf if dwarves resemble the sulky warriors from games. R replies that dwarves never refuse a drink, then, with a straight face, admits he hasn't had a drink in ages, despite clearly having one last night. He comments that dwarves are so rugged, even their women have beards. Taiho thinks, "Thanks for the insight, not interested." Razgrid mentions they'll use a special transport called Black Lightning to reach their destination, and dread washes over everyone's faces. Flashback to the previous night in Taiho's tent, where Helda requests a private conversation. She presents him with a special necklace, the Apple of Gold pendant, which enhances healing speed, along with a fragment of a golden apple possessing extraordinary properties. It heals wounds, neutralizes toxins, and breaks curses. She kisses his forehead, blessing him in Iden's name back to the present. Taiho finds himself buried in snow in front of the colossal Black Fortress. He pulls himself out, irritation etched on his face, grumbling that he knew this trip wouldn't be ordinary, but being ejected like a corpse from a coffin was too much. Scanning the surroundings, he notices his teammates sprawled in the snow, motionless, and wonders if they're dead. Then it clicks. Helda's necklace must be the reason he's still standing. Its power is greater than he anticipated. The group gathers at the fortress entrance and ventures inside. The darkness and foreboding atmosphere envelop them. Someone quips that dwarves must detest sunlight, Ciri boldly declares that they are warriors of Valhalla, sent by Valkyrie. The air is thick, as if steeped in centuries of silence and sorrow. Taiho activates his dragon eyes to survey the area, warning them that something feels amiss. He detects movements, countless figures lurking above. Ciri reacts immediately, commanding everyone to raise their shields just as arrows rain down from above. The warriors shield themselves as effectively as they can. Then Taiho exclaims, "This can't be correct. They're dwarves, yet they are undead zombies." The group goes stiff, and Ralph mutters, "Zombies. Why the hell are there zombies here?" The only conclusion is that the dwarves fell, becoming undead somehow. Ralph inquires with Taiho if he's truly seeing this. The title affirms it with his Saga engaged. He perceives them vividly, even in the gloom. He starts rattling off their bizarre names like Ghost Dwarf of Cinema, Ghost Dwarf Rapper, and Lord Vocal Ghost Dwarf. These zombie dwarves bear the most absurd titles. But there's no time to dwell on the ridiculousness as one of the undead dwarf archers once again readies their bow. Ciri shouts for them to maintain formation, preventing any gaps from forming. Someone yells that their shields are failing and won't withstand much longer. More zombie dwarves emerge from the higher platforms, poised to rain arrows upon them. Things seem dire until a different dwarf appears. This one is actually alive and brandishing what appears to be a makeshift Molotov cocktail. He hurls it, igniting a wall of fire that obscures the undead's vision and halts the rain of arrows. He orders them to follow him, and without hesitation, the group complies. They squeeze through a tight passage, Ralph getting stuck, naturally, but he manages to squirm through. Gio trails last, and when they finally catch their breath, they behold a vast underground space that's chillingly eerie. The living dwarf begins to explain the unfolding chaos. Everything they witnessed outside is the result of a vampire who emerged at dawn. He explains the grim truth: if a vampire kills or bites you, you turn into a zombie. He depicts this creature as massive, with gray skin, a bald head, and eyes as dark as the abyss, claiming his strength lies more in physical might than magic. Ciri asks if revenge fuels their struggle, suggesting they regroup first, but the dwarf insists it's not merely about vengeance, it's something far greater. Recently, they unearthed something known as ulti in the mines. Everyone looks stunned, and Ralph queries what that is. The dwarf elaborates, stating it's the metal of the gods, the most durable material in existence that enhances rune powers and must never fall into enemy hands. Someone mentions knowing that already and confirms it's legendary. When Ralph seeks an example, the dwarf replies, "Thor's hammer was forged with ulti." He gestures to the fortress, stating, "At the summit lies the sacred anvil where the vampires likely hide." The dwarf clarifies that it can only be refined by starlight and moonlight. Taiho wonders how they could acquire any light while dwelling underground. The dwarf reveals that the tower's apex connects to the surface, allowing part of the ceiling to open. Taiho contemplates that this revelation could redefine everything, and since it's noon, the vampire's weakest hour. They push forward into the fortress. They hardly pass the entrance when they stumble upon a horde of zombies absorbed in poker, drinking their undead sorrows away. But as soon as they spot the living, the undead snap to reality and swarm toward them. Ciri leads the charge while the dwarves wield wind manipulation, crafting tornadoes that launch the undead skyward. Meanwhile, the demolition specialist dwarf blasts a path open with his cannon. Taiho, Ciri, and Ralph advance toward the room housing the sacred anvil. Upon crossing the main gate, an unsettling silence blankets the area. Tio remarks that everything feels suspiciously easy. Tao points upwards at the ceiling above the anvil. A shadowy figure eyes them from above. The vampire is already there, waiting. Tio scrutinizes the creature and mutters, "It's smaller than the other monsters." But before he can finish that observation, horror strikes in an instant. The vampire tears through two warriors prepping their arrows, blood splattering across the stone floor, freezing Taiho in dread. He tries to flee, but the vampire appears beside him, speaking in a malevolent tone, demanding to know how they breached his domain and asserting the treasure is his. He questions the vampire's so-called weakest hour theory. The vampire chuckles darkly, raising his claws toward Taiho, then threatening the rest of the group, warning them not to move or he'll start collecting heads as trophies. Ciri notices Ralph and two others remain unharmed while Ralph mentions his bow is wrecked. The vampire fixates on Taiho, proclaiming that warriors of such strength shouldn't perish. They would be ideal soldiers in his undead army. Taiho contemplates that dying seems preferable to becoming a zombie. He's on the verge of doing something reckless when, out of nowhere, an arrow soars through the air. But that fiend snatches it away before it can connect, before that fiend can retaliate. The dwarf unleashes his cannon, firing a torrent of flames directly into the vampire's chest. A solid hit, albeit insufficient to inflict serious harm. With monstrous strength, it just barrels through the fire. Ciri commands her warriors to assemble a shield wall. But with a single strike, the vampire sends them flying like bowling pins. The dwarves mount another offensive, even executing a few triple whirlwind combo techniques. Yet the vampire absorbs all of it effortlessly. amidst the chaos. Taiho notices an opening above a hatch that can let the sunlight penetrate. Our hero pulls a lever and boom! A beam of midday sunlight floods the chamber, striking the vampire directly. The creature howls as his flesh starts petrifying, dropping him to his knees. Ralph inquires of Taiho whether he knows how to finish off a vampire. Taiho ponders aloud, suggesting perhaps a stake to the heart or severing the head. Standard procedures for vampire eradication. Folks, but before they can try a different tactic, the vampire fiend begins chanting, summoning darkness. Just like that, the sun disappears, replaced by cold moonlight. The group thinks, let's just smash this fiend's skull and wrap this up. Alas, it's too late. The vampire's form crumbles into a swarm of bats that whirl around the hall. The bats merge back together, transforming into a titanic bat with colossal wings and eyes seething with fury. Phase 2 has begun. Baby, the vampire declares, vowing to unleash torment for their insolence. His mouth opens, spewing acidic orbs that corrode anything in their path. Taiho yells for everyone to take cover, but these foolish barbarians remain frozen, becoming mere bones in a moment of desperation. Taiho takes a deep breath and activates his Saga. He leaps toward the beast, diving into full assault mode. The bat roars with laughter, questioning if Taiho is foolish or merely suicidal. It prepares another acid attack, but Taiho is quicker now, evading the strike and slashing at the creature. The blow lands, yet his sword shatters against its hardened hide. He finds himself speechless and exposed, precariously balanced on the beast's back. The vampire tells Taiho to dismount. Taiho responds, I'm too high to jump. And before this can devolve into a lesson on vampire training, the vampire retorts, let me drop you, and we can continue this duel. As they descend, the entire chamber begins to glow, and Taiho realizes he's about to receive a new saga. The vampire roars at Taiho to stop playing around and come down. Tio closes his eyes, concentrates, and activates his newfound power. Dragon Commander. With this skill, he can tame and ride any beast griffins. Dragons, or bats, apparently. It's a capability inherited from Kolstead, a legendary dragon rider. Thanks to this talent, the bat is now under our hero's command. The fiend is transformed into a cute little bat, leaving everyone in stunned amazement. Even Ciri gazes at it with an odd expression as if she yearns to cuddle the creature. Suddenly, it reverts back to its monstrous form. The vampire is absolutely enraged, howling that they will pay for this humiliation. I can't really fault the guy for his ego after going from apex predator to cuddly pet. Taiho feels a chill, but Ciri yells for everyone to prepare. They need to finish this. Taiho swiftly mounts the bat again, using his saw to revert it to its cute form temporarily. He outlines the plan. He'll inflict as much destruction as possible. Then they'll collectively finish the beast. He soars into the skies on the bat's back as the first rays of sunlight begin to sear the creature. Then Taiho commands him to dive at full speed towards the ground. He jumps clear just before it crashes to the earth. Then he activates his warrior Saga, Skull Crusher, delivering a devastating blow to its head. Yet that fiend remains breathing. But the dwarf isn't finished. He tosses a bundle of explosives onto the bat. The explosion is substantial, but still not enough. So Ralph carelessly flings the skeleton dude from earlier into the fire as if it's the most natural course of action. Taiho mutters to himself about how crazy these guys are to be hauling that around. At that moment, Ralph turns to Taiho and asks if the fiend bat is dead. Taiho uses his saga and affirms that it's down for good. With the bat defeated, the group faces the altar and stands before the anvil. The dwarf opens the chest and retrieves the so-called medal of the god as he does. Taiho, Rolf, and Ciri ventured together. We risk our lives for this trivial fragment. This hassle seems hardly worth it. The dwarf scrounges enough scraps to forge a mighty ring. Such precious metal can't be left vulnerable, so he entrusts it to Ciri. Believing Valhalla will safeguard it, Ciri accepts with great pride, now that the formalities are over. Rolf inquires if it's time to drink. The dwarf responds, isn't that the obvious choice? It's time to drink ourselves silly. But Ciri reminds them of their need to return. The dwarf insists he can't let them go empty-handed. That's against his traditions, leading them to a vault of stunning weapons. As he opens the vault, everyone selects a weapon or armor for themselves. Noticing Taiho isn't being greedy like the rest, Isk encourages Taiho to pick one for himself. Taiho wastes no time, activating his dragon eyes to survey his options. Something piques his interest, and we'll see his new gear later. A cloak. The only blue item in the vault is named Falcon Wings, light, sturdy, and possessing a special ability. The dwarf teaches Taiho a chant to unveil its power. The scene shifts to our hero, now a falcon soaring high over Mount Taihans. He sweeps over the enchanted coffins where his comrades slumber, heading back to Black Castle. After landing, the group rushes to report to Valkyrie Rusgrid. Ciri recounts the tale of how a lone vampire seized control of the dwarven mines, and together they triumphed over him, safeguarding the ultimate. Rusgrid inspects the divine metal fragment and declares their achievement monumental. While internally questioning why this fragment is so tiny, she proclaims, "Mission accomplished, excellent work everyone." She mentions that the fallen warriors will rise again as legendary steel warriors, But for now, they've earned a break. The group disperses. Rolf, true to form, already has plans brewing. He asks Taiho if he's interested in a drink. Taiho chuckles and shakes his head, thinking to himself, "Are you crazy, you fool? I'm exhausted. I need some rest." Just before he can leave, Ciri approaches with a beaming smile, congratulating him, adding, "Taiho was the star of that fight." Taiho feels embarrassed and replies, "None of it would have succeeded without the rest of you." He contemplates how that vampire was a genuine monster who even managed to darken the sky. Opening his system window, he discovers the most exciting news is yet to unfold. He has just unlocked a new saga, earned numerous runes, and boosted his synchronization rate to 9%, eagerly anticipating what will happen at 10%. The scene changes to Valkyrie Regan patrolling her usual territory, this time delving further than she typically would. Everything appears serene until an odd sound reverberates through Mount Tons. She follows the noise, and when she uncovers the source, her eyes widen in shock. She instantly activates her saga, Swarming Windcloak. Recognizing that getting closer could cost her life, she turns and flies back as fast as she can. Upon her return, she rushes to inform Rusgrid of her discovery, alerting her of an invading army approaching them. Rusgrid commands immediate reinforcements to be dispatched to Valhalla. Meanwhile, Ciri plays the role of the party pooper, instructing everyone to return to their quarters. She desires them well rested for the impending chaos. The warriors comply, albeit with reluctance. Taiho lingers in a corner, entirely focused on training. He believes the cloak he received holds greater potential than mere travel or escape. So he resolves to uncover what else it might offer. The following morning begins with a shot of sturdy thighs. A new Valkyrie arrives. Ingrid hails from the Nord region, accompanied by 500 low-ranked warriors. Adding them to Black Castle's 2,000 defenders brings their total to 2,500. But the enemy report remains dire. Over 6,000 beasts stand ready on the opposing front. Confronted with such overwhelming odds, Rusgrid declares their sole option is to defend the fortress at all costs. They will depend on defensive magic as their ultimate line of resistance. Knowing these three heroes are prepared to protect Asgard and the Nine Realms, each warrior takes their position on the wall, ready for battle. And soon enough, the enemy arrives. Some scoundrel screams Thor's name, others call out Odin's, along with many of their revered gods, as they prepare for combat. Ciri commands the troops to stand ready to unleash their arrows. And our protagonist thinks that for this showdown, a ranged weapon is necessary, so he draws a crossbow for himself. The enemy army finally reaches the fortress walls, and suddenly the sky darkens with a flurry of arrows. Countless creatures plummet instantly, but the resilient ones, they merely rise again, shields raised, and continue their relentless charge as if untouched. Before long, they're at the base of the walls, casting giant hooks and climbing. Yet the defenders are prepared. One man laughs, confident they won't ascend here, while another grins, pouring boiling water on the unfortunate fools below. Massive stones tumbles from the walls, crushing anyone foolish enough to draw near. Ralph lets loose explosive arrows as Ciri and Taiho press forward, cleaving through those who dare to ascend. Then the sky darkens yet again, but not from arrows this time. A shadow looms. They look up, and there it is, a dragon descending like a waking nightmare. Fire spews from its maw, engulfing the battlefield in chaos. For a moment, despair reigns, screams pierce the air, flames engulfing everything. But then, Valkyrie Regan steps forth like an unyielding titan. She drives her spear into the ground, awakening luminous runes. In an instant, an enormous barrier envelops the castle, a radiant dome shielding against the dragon's inferno. For a fleeting moment, breath returns to the crowd. Yet this relief is short-lived. The beasts regroup, launching relentless assaults at one vulnerable point on the shield. Rien yells that if they persist, the barrier's collapse is imminent. That's when Tai notices it's his moment. He races toward the wall's edge and leaps as if he's lost his mind. In midair, he chants, "Power of a falcon, elevate me to the skies." In an instant, he transforms into a falcon, with masterful flight. He weaves past the barrier before anyone can react, positioning himself behind the dragons and exclaiming, "Here I go." Then he dives down with ferocity. Just before impact, he reverts to human form. Without hesitation, he kicks a stunned beast rider off one of the dragons and claims his mount. That bartering from last night has truly paid off. This dragon is his now. He activates the Dragon Commander Saga, charming the dragon just as he did with the beast. Realizing he requires a spear, he activates his Warrior Saga, anticipating something impressive, but is dismayed to receive a bamboo spear instead. Taiho descends into combat, unleashing dragon fire to eliminate his foes. He swiftly takes out two more enemies, but the rest rage and charge at him. However, he moves with incredible speed. One by one, he swiftly dispatches them. His allies cheer, even Rayan in awe of Taiho's prowess. But just as victory seems near, a fresh threat arises. A legion of harpies swoops down upon them. There are countless, and Taiho realizes he cannot tackle them alone. He orders the dragon to descend and collect Ciri. She activates her Saga. The witch's arrow never misses as she conjures endless arrows, each finding its target. Taking out harpy after harpy on the battlefield, even the Valkyries watch in astonishment, witnessing Taiho single-handedly shift the battle's momentum. They recognize that his slaughter of harpies has reignited their hope. But this hope quickly fades as something colossal impacts the ground from above. The shockwaves tremble everything, and Ciri and Taiho wonder what that monstrosity is. As the dust settles, they gaze upon a massive creature with glowing blue eyes and snowy fur. Kai, blessed with dragon's sight, identifies the monstrous foe. That beast was one of the Lokis, and it was the stage boss. The warriors stare at this towering dilemma and exclaim, "Hey, that's not fair. How are we supposed to defeat that thing?" But the colossal brute shows no concern, beginning to stomp toward them mercilessly. Meanwhile, high above, Ciri urges Taiho to retreat, requesting he drop her near Ralph on the battlefield. The giant has seized something massive and is trying to shatter the barrier. While Rian struggles to fend him off, she begins a chant, invoking the power of runes. Yet, each of the giant's blows delivers tremendous force, shockwaves incapacitating the warriors. That brute unleashes one strike after another. His final assault truly packs a devastating punch, cracking the barrier that has held steadfast for so long. Regan is depleting her energy, so Rasser joins her, reinforcing the barrier with magic. She inquires if Regan is all right. Regan nods, stating that, at this rate, it's only a matter of time before the barrier collapses. Rasser nods, whispering that they aren't equipped to face an enemy of this caliber with merely the weakest warriors. She contemplates how all of this would end if she could tap into that power. She longed to wield the genuine might of the Valkyrie. In fervent prayer to Odin, she expressed their inability to vanquish this titan with just lowly warriors and sought permission to unleash their combat seal. As her prayers echoed, a raven soared above the giant's towering form through its eyes. Odin observed the fierce battle unfold. Even witnessing the Valkyries' struggle, that one-eyed scoundrel, Dan, refused to release their seal. He insisted that this battle serves as a test, reminding them that Valhalla craves robust warriors. Just before Razgri could respond, Brax surged forward. His war cry resonated, shaking the very ground beneath them. Uniting all around him, this warrior wasn't just any fighter. He hailed from Thor's legendary legion. The instant he roared, the others found their voices, their fear evaporating into nothing. Without a moment's pause, Brax lunged straight at the giant. His axe descended like thunder, crashing down onto the beast's forehead. It barely left a mark, yet the crowd erupted with exhilaration. Even the slightest wound proved the monster could bleed. The warriors surged forward, chanting their gods' names. The giant, however, had a different perspective. With a thunderous roar, it swept an arm, sending Brax flying as if he were nothing. Meanwhile, Taiho landed back on the wall, depositing Ciri right next to Rolf. Ciri quickly turned to him, outlining her bold plan. She and Ralph would create an opening. Taiho just needed to ascend once more and wait for the right moment. Taiho scanned the giant, his gaze fixating on that tiny gash on its forehead. While it seemed insignificant, it surely ignited its fury. Ciri meticulously explained her strategy to Rolf. They set the siege ballista in motion and released their fire simultaneously, each activating their sagas. Rolf's eyes widened. "Are you out of your mind? No one has ever attempted such a feat, yet." Ciri remained resolute, regardless of the risk. It was their best option. Far above, Taiho waited, his gaze locked on the giant. But the beast's focus suddenly shifted to him. For something so colossal, its speed was astonishing. Its massive hand shot out, and before Taiho could react, smack, he was swatted from the sky, hitting the ground hard, tumbling like a ragdoll until he crashed against the base of the wall. The Valkyries gasped in horror. Razgrid screamed his name and dashed toward him. The others called out after her, yet she pressed on. She understood that Taiho was their final hope. What awaited her was grim. His leg lay twisted at a gruesome angle, and his body was shattered from the fall. The beasts outside began congregating. Taiho attempted to move, but nothing responded. His vision blurred, death creeping in once again as everything faded. He wasn't in battle anymore. He was at a table, sitting with Hela. Their home radiated tranquility. She smiled at him, urging him to eat swiftly. On his plate lay luminous golden fragments, the apple pieces she had gifted him. Taiho took a bite. Golden light surged through his being. Even the Valkyries on the wall stilled. The aura radiating from him wasn't just potent, it was divine. Razgrid whispered in disbelief. How could a lowly warrior glow with godly strength? Taiho rose, his body shimmering like the sun. Every injury mended, every shred of pain vanished. The beasts faltered, dread creeping in. Taiho raised an arm and, with a mere flick, hurled them back as if they were nothing, on the wall. Ciri shouted to Rolf, ensuring he was all right, reminding him they were prepped on their end. Taiho glanced up and responded that he felt fine. But he had no mount, and his cloak alone wouldn't elevate him high enough. Just then, Razgrid appeared behind him. She reassured him that he could ride her. "I'm not envious." Not envious at all. Curse it, I wish I could ride a Valkyrie. Meanwhile, the warriors flung themselves at the giant. They were scaling it like ants, biting down ferociously. The giant, however, treated them like the nuisances they were. Swatting them aside, Taiho, on the other hand, was caught blushing, quizzing Razgrid about what she meant by rider. That's when she spoke the word Draco and transfigured into a splendid white dragon. She now comprehended why Odin had denied their plea. This battle wasn't theirs. This battle belonged to Taiho and his companions, and she was confident they would emerge victorious due to their strength. With that, Taiho hopped astride as he apologized for what was about to unfold, and she simply declared, "Hold on!" Without warning, she took off. They soared high above the battlefield, while below, Ciri motivated Rolf, declaring it was showtime. She adjusted the immense siege ballista as Rolf positioned himself behind it, pulling back the colossal frame. The weapon radiates with the power of their combined sabas. On the ground, Brax is bloodied and bruised, but refuses to succumb. He summons his Saba, son of God. Power erupts around him, granting him tenfold might. In that instant, the sagas of Ciri and Ralph entwine, naming their strike the Huntress Witch's arrow that guarantees a hit. A mouthful, sure, but it delivers. Brax makes the first move, leaping up and fiercely driving his axe into the gargantuan beast. As the giant roars in pain, Roll and Ciri release their shot. This immense arrow zips through the air like a living force and plunges straight into the giant's gaping maw. It explodes with a deafening boom that likely startled half the continent. The giant stumbles, howling, then begins to topple. Seizing the opportunity, Razgrid plunges in. She instructs Taiho to prepare. This is their moment, as Taiho activates both his sabas, dubbing it the Saba of Warriors, Storm Charge. As Razgrid plunges through the sky, her incredible speed conjures a tornado around them, amplifying their velocity and weight. They strike the open wound on the giant's forehead. The force is utterly devastating, shaking the very ground beneath them. In celebration of this fierce victory, they host a grand feast to honor the warriors. Laughter and chatter fill the air as the festivities thrive on the central stage. The Valkyries arrive, trading their armor for elegant white gowns. Rian raises a colossal horn filled with mead, calling for the crowd's attention. She invites the warriors to raise their cups in a toast, and the crowd erupts into cheers. Regan declares it an honor to stand among them celebrating such a monumental victory. She then raises her hand for silence, apologizing as she cannot serve each warrior personally due to the shortage of Valkyries against the multitude of soldiers. Instead, she announces her sister, the Ice Princess Razgrid, will personally honor 2 warriors who made the greatest contributions in today's battle. The honoree isn't entirely thrilled about it. Her temper flares, ready to tussle with the lot. Then, Razgrid calls forth the first warrior, Brax of Thor's Legion, igniting wild excitement in the crowd. They hail him as the son of God, a one-man army. Razgrid fills his cup with mead, maintaining her stoic demeanor. Next, she announces Taiho from the Legion of Adon, and the cheers escalate even more, tinged with peculiar energy now. Instead of purely celebrating his heroics, everyone jokes about how he was favored by a Valkyrie and literally rode one into battle. Someone shouts, "That's my guy!" The crowd bursts into laughter. Razgrid's annoyance grows by the second as she listens to the chatter about her private affairs. Before it turns uncomfortable, Ingrid interjects, proclaiming both warriors are officially promoted to lower-class warriors. Taiho stands there, stunned. Recalling that Jor once held this title, at last, he feels like he's finally on the rise in life. Rian raises her horn once more, announcing it's time to drink and celebrate. Brax and Taiho perform their first official toast as they stand side by side. Taiho glances around at the crowd chanting his name, thinking, yeah, this feels right. He promptly downs his drink in one go like a true champion, but it turns out our hero is quite the lightweight. He gets utterly smashed in no time, yet he doesn't mind because he's living his best life. Meanwhile, in the shadows, 2 enigmatic figures are holding their own villainous meeting. One inquires if that's the famous Taiho who awakened divine power. The other replies, yeah, it's impressive, but my kids could definitely pull that off too. He sighs, deciding to lend a hand since they requested it, but only this once. Fast forward 1 week, and Taiho finally has his own place. A cozy little cabin included in his promotion package. He sleeps soundly when suddenly the ground starts shaking. He bursts outside, thinking, what fresh hell is this? At his doorstep stands a cloaked figure with lightning crackling nearby. The cloaked man simply gazes at Taiho, all ominous and foreboding. Taiho asks, who are you and why are you throwing a light show in my yard? The mysterious figure remains silent, instead questioning if Taiho is the renowned lower-class warrior who defeated 2 commanders and helped bring down a giant, adding that it pains him to be labeled a hero. Yet, even his children could outperform that. He slowly pulls back his hood and draws a sword. Taiho activates his dragon eyes, instantly regretting it. This dude's power level is off the charts, perhaps even surpassing the Valkyries. Upon seeing the name, he nearly has a heart attack. Ragnar Brax, the legendary Viking warrior, has shown up at his doorstep. Ragnar declares he's come to battle and wants to test Taiho's true strength. Taiho thinks, did he seriously knock on my door at this hour to demand a death match? He maintains his composure. Asking if there's any reason behind this unexpected boss battle request, Ragnar replies, why should I give reasons to someone about to meet their end? They head to a makeshift battlefield, where Taiho summons his sword while Ragnar remains still. Activating his Warrior of the Storm Saga for a boost in speed and strength, Taiho launches what seems to be a solid attack at Ragnar, who effortlessly blocks it with one hand. Ragnar's smirk grows wider, as if saying, is that truly all you've got? Taiho feels irritated and tries again, thinking speed might succeed where power has failed. But nope, to Ragnar, it's all the same. He dodges and blocks every move with ease. Taiho begins to suspect this guy might predict his strikes. He decides to be clever and zips behind Ragnar, aiming to catch him off guard, but before he can swing. A brutal hit followed by a powerful slap catches Taiho off guard. He's sent soaring through trees, crashing into a massive trunk. Taiho thinks, this man is downright terrifying. Realizing the power gap is far greater than he anticipated, without his divine blessing, he'd already be a goner. Ragnar leisurely approaches, launching into a philosophical monologue about how fallen warriors become warriors of steel and find eternal peace. So Taiho feels he's got nothing to fear. Before he can react, Ragnar raises his sword and unleashes a devastating strike that splits the colossal tree trunk behind Taiho. But Taiho, using his cloak, transforms into a falcon at the last moment. Narrowly evading disaster, Ragnar watches him ascend and remarks, if you intend to strike me, put forth your all, I won't even flinch. Taiho doesn't hesitate, reactivates Storm Warrior, and dives downward. Just before impact, he switches to Skullcrusher Warrior, summoning a massive warhammer behind him, despite the meteor hammer combo barreling down. Ragnar remains unfazed. When it connects, the explosion rattles the earth, shockwaves radiating for miles, creating a gigantic crater. Yet somehow, Taiho still misses his mark. In the blink of an eye, Ragnar dodges effortlessly and captures Taiho by the head, stating that his skills are commendable, but insufficient. Then he slams Taiho into the ground, now gripping Taiho by the neck. He inquires if Taiho can keep going. But Taiho doesn't wait for a reply. He ignites his arm with lethal energy and swipes Taiho across the face, the force shattering everything nearby. He stands over him, inspecting his handiwork, contemplating. Yep, that ought to do it. Then he strides away, grumbling about expecting more. But then golden light starts to glow behind him. Ragnar halts and turns, his demeanor shifting to serious. Taiho rises again, glowing like a radiant bulb with divine energy swirling around him. Ragnar concedes the rumors were accurate. Taiho indeed can wield god power. He acknowledges understanding why Taiho's goddess has faith in him. He warns Taiho against recklessly using divine energy. But before he finishes, Taiho collapses onto the ground. Later, Taiho awakens to blurry surroundings. The first thing he sights is Hela kneeling beside him, her expression filled with worry. She asks if he's all right. He queries about what transpired. She explains that she was panicking, having seen him out cold for hours. He begins recounting an encounter with a complete psycho who appeared eager to kill him for no apparent reason. Then he halts mid-sentence, his heart nearly stops. Ragnar leans against the wall, eavesdropping with an expression that says, "Oh, really?" Ragnar inquires with an icy tone if that's how Taiho has been portraying their discussion. Taiho begins to sweat profusely, sensing the impending trouble. Hela intervenes, pointing at Ragnar, claiming he's going to be Taiho's new mentor. Taiho looks at her and exclaims, "Absolutely not, I've already got you." Ragnar retorts that he never agreed to babysit some random kid and has far more important matters to attend to. She explains that since Taiho's already activated God mode, she's incapable of teaching him much more. Her teachings are mainly theoretical. Taiho needs someone skilled to wield that power. Ragnar glances over Taiho, scoffing at how such a frail little guy can tap into divine energy. Even his offspring could manage that without effort. If this is all Taiho brings to the table, training seems pointless. Held insists he'll soon change his mind. Perhaps he'll be begging to train Taiho, urging him to showcase his saga, reassuring Taiho that Ragnar can be trusted. Confused, Taiho reveals a magical feather displaying sagas. The saga of the Immortal Warrior materializes, adorned with shimmering runes celebrating the Dragon Knight legacy. Ragnar stands utterly shocked at the sight. The mighty Viking falls silent for the first time. He finally inquires about Taiho's past before his demise. Taiho has far surpassed his expectations. Held questions how powerful Taiho could become if he fully realized his saga. Ragnar ponders deeply, suggesting maybe, just maybe, Taiho could achieve Sigurd's level. Held explains that Sigurd essentially refers to the mightiest warrior in Valhalla. Helva intensifies her gaze on Ragnar, demanding he assist Taiho in achieving that stature. Ragnar wraps his arm around Taiho, declaring he'll absolutely provide that support. Held warns him not to get carried away like before with that. She departs, officially handing Taiho over to Ragnar. Outside, Ragnar confesses he's genuinely awed. He never imagined someone like Taiho could exist. His potential seems limitless. The scene shifts to Ciri. She beams as she meets with the young warrior, turning to Rawl. He shares he too has been promoted to the lower-class warrior. Looking around, he asks if everyone is present. Ciri responds they all still await one individual, right on cue. Tiva approaches with his calm smile, saying, "It's wonderful to see everyone again." All eyes are on him in pure admiration. Why wouldn't they? This is the legendary warrior graced by a Valkyrie, the sole hero known to have ridden one. Tio feels awkward under their admiration and asks Ciri what exactly she disclosed about him. Ciri smirks, glancing at Ralph, attributing it all to this rascal's influence. Just then, someone queries if everyone has arrived, and lo and behold, it's a Valkyrie. Silver hair, emerald green armor. The complete package. Her name is Gandor, warrior of the Ulra Legion. She informs everyone that this expedition comprises a small group of merely inferior-ranked warriors from the Ol and Aman legions, but warned that despite its size, slacking is not permitted. The warriors protest, questioning when it's ever been easy. Gandor chuckles, reminding them of her constant watch. Taiho reflects on how relaxed and laid back the atmosphere feels. It feels genuine, human. Gandor gathers everyone, ready to unveil the mission, when Ralph queries their destination. Her playful demeanor shifts entirely, declaring they're headed to Svartalheim, the realm of the Dark Elves, also known as the Land of Eternal Night. Towering trees obscure the sunlight, the ground blanketed with decaying leaves. It's as if they've stepped into a forest that has long forgotten the essence of sunshine. They traverse the portal, and Taiho instantly senses the change. The air is dense and humid, everything shrouded in darkness. Gandor finally reveals their purpose for being here. The Dark Elves provide medicinal herbs for Valhalla, but one of them inadvertently awakened a basilisk. Yes, one of those serpentine rulers. The elves require assistance in vanquishing it. She then mentions they're deploying Silent White for this mission, igniting excitement among everyone, though Taiho remains clueless about its significance. He figures it'll likely be just as wild as everything else he's experienced. Upon inquiry, Ciri merely tells him to wait and see. Then a pack of enormous white wolves appears, unlike any ordinary canines. Everyone mounts them and begins racing through the forest. The wolves move astonishingly fast, yet are utterly silent. Gandor notices Taiho's proficiency in riding and compliments him. He realizes his dragon commander skills are finally proving useful beyond just flying. Gandor informs Ciri that she has matters to discuss with the Dark Elf Council, assigning her the mission's leadership. She claims the wolves are well aware of the path, then vanishes among the trees. After hours of riding, they arrive at a concealed leaf village. A dark elf named Toller greets them, offering to lead them to the village chief. Tio gets his first genuine look at Dark Elf's gray skin, silver hair. But he notices the locals don't appear too thrilled about their presence. Numerous suspicious glances and hushed conversations surround them. Children peek timidly from behind doors as if they're witnessing aliens. Taiho activates his dragon eyes, scanning for threats. Most appear neutral, yet Toller emits a friendly vibe. They reach a grand mansion, passing through tall gates into a vast hall. Toller opens a door, leading them into a banquet room filled with a lavish spread. A servant stands by the chairs. Food sprawled everywhere. At the table's head, an elderly elf wearing a warm smile awaits. This is Malice, the Molo family's leader and village patriarch. As everyone settles in, Ralph's eyes dart to the drinks. Malice lifts his cup for a toast, and everyone turns to Ciri with pleading gazes, since she typically forbids drinking during missions. But to their shock, she concedes that one sip is fine after their long journey. The room erupts in celebration, and Tio raises his cup to join the revelry. Suddenly, he freezes. He shouts for everyone to halt and grabs the cups before anyone can drink. His gaze locks with Ciri as he instructs everyone to head for the exit. Ciri commands everyone out, but Malice yells for the doors to be sealed. Taiho's dragon eyes reveal the entry hall swarming with enemies. Elven archers ready themselves to strike, but Ciri quickly reacts, urging everyone to raise their shields as arrows rain down. They fend off the first barrage, but Taiho spots elves moving to block their escape. If that occurs, they'll be trapped. He bolts for the door, taking down 2 guards to keep it unbarred. Malice watches, baffled as his flawless scheme crumbles after dispatching the guards. Taiho spins and delivers a crushing kick that obliterates the door. He roars for everyone to run, and they sprint through the courtyard. But their escape isn't guaranteed yet. Ciri brandishes a golden whistle and blows into it fiercely. From the shadows, the silent whites surge forth. She urges everyone to climb swiftly. The dark elf archers close in behind them, preparing for another volley. As the arrows begin to fly, Tai steps forward with determination. He rolls up his sleeves, revealing glowing golden runes etched into his arms. It turns out Helda inscribed them during his training. This technique is called rune engraving, an art to channel magic. The potency hinges on the size and complexity of the runes. Permanent tattoos pose risks with limited body space, so Helda opted for temporary ones, ideal for training. Yet even these pack formidable power. His skin radiates bright light, and Taiho roars. Gee! A golden aura bursts around him, and arrows aimed at him disintegrate mid-flight. The dark elves stand frozen, mouths agape at the spectacle. But then, heavy footsteps echo, and Malad charges in, furious. He bellows at his troops, commanding them to prevent any escape. Malice crumbles to his knees, trembling, clutching his head as he questions where his flawless plan went wrong. The group finally escapes far enough from the village to pause and regain their breath. Some wonder if it's safe to rest now, but truthfully, they have little choice. Even the wolves pant heavily from the frantic dash, and their concerns don't end there despite blocking most arrows. Some still struck their targets. The wounds won't be fatal, but they could pose serious issues if another fight breaks out, as they begin extracting arrows from their bodies. Someone notices a dark liquid mixed with the blood and decides to taste it. The arrows, it turns out, were coated in poison. One warrior asks Ciri if they can halt to properly treat their wounds. But she's already tending to her wolf, shaking her head. They must treat their injuries while on the move. Stopping now is unwise. They need to locate Valkyrie Gandor. Back at the mansion, Malice remains on his knees, trembling when a figure cloaked in purple flames appears. A voice declares his failure. The old elf bows deeply, voice shaking in desperation as he pleads for mercy in a frenzy. He demands power, yearning for the basilisk's might, vowing that with it nobody could stand against them. The entity merely laughs and utters a resolute denial. But then the voice continues, assuring him that they anticipated his failure. A backup plan was in place. Shifting back to the warriors who believe they've eluded danger, Ralph glances at Taiho, wondering if he sensed the elves were enemies due to his abilities. Taiho nods, thanking Ciri for having faith in him. Had he attempted to clarify everything then, it might have been too late. Ciri offers a gentle smile and states, it's only natural to trust those who fought beside you during life or death encounters. But suddenly, her expression alters completely. Her eyes widen as something crimson begins to swirl behind them, creating a portal. She shouts for everyone to prepare, but before they can react, a massive blade pierces the warrior at the rear. His body is lifted into the air as blood sprays everywhere. The others can only watch in horror. What's worse is that the one wielding that blade hasn't come through the portal yet. One thing is certain, this creature is far from human. Its skin is a repulsive dead green hue. Taiho's dragon eyes remain alert, revealing something truly terrifying. This creature is known as Regenerator Marcos. Two warriors, consumed by rage, charge at him, seeking vengeance for their fallen comrade. Initially, they seem successful as their swords dig deep into the creature's chest. But that was precisely what Marcos craved. With a single stroke, both warriors are dispatched. 3 lives lost in less than 10 seconds as if they were mere trifles. Fear grips the group tightly, yet what truly terrifies them is witnessing the wounds magically close. The creature's skin mends itself completely, leaving no trace behind. Ciri bellows the word Regenerator. She instructs them to mount the wolves and flee, but Marcos is quicker before they can escape. He lunges forward, unleashing enormous serpents from his arms. Within seconds, they coil around the wolves, the animals panic, tossing all the warriors from their backs. Ciri leaps back, narrowly dodging a venomous bite, but Marcos immediately pursues her. He charges forward relentlessly. Just before he strikes, Ciri channels her power. However, something feels different this time. Her arrows gleam a fierce red. More arrows emerge around her, suspended in midair. She releases them all in unison. Each arrow finds its mark, ripping through Marcos's form, an onslaught that should have been fatal, yet he remains unfazed. He springs into action, preparing to strike midair. Ciri draws 2 daggers in time to parry his assault, but she is too fixated on his swords. She fails to notice the grotesque claw that slams into her face. The blow propels her back, rendering her unconscious. Ralph witnesses the entire horrific event unfold. Just before Marcos can deliver the final blow to Ciri, Ralph unleashes his own power. He draws an arrow and fires it at point-blank range. The explosion rattles the entire vicinity. Without a moment's hesitation, Ralph seizes Ciri and bolts faster than he's ever moved. He senses Marcos's looming presence, as if death itself is pursuing them. Then, abruptly, Marcos halts. His gaze shifts to something behind him. Taiho has already initiated his assault. The creature pivots to counter the attack, granting Ralph the moment he needs to escape. As he flees, he hears Taiho declare that Marcos will be his opponent from now on. The creature deflects the attack with an arrogant grin, as if he anticipated it from a mile away. He then raises his hand, unleashing more serpents that lunge towards Taiho. But Taiho is prepared. He slices through them with rapid, multi-directional strikes, obliterating every snake in an instant. Seizing the opening he has created, he darts forward for another strike. Yet he notices something unsettling. The monster is not attempting to defend itself at all. It's absorbing the blows, letting its healing abilities handle the damage. Taiho decides to adjust his strategy. A golden aura envelops him as he approaches. Without a hint of hesitation, he executes a slash that pierces Marcus's body. The radiant light transforms the scene into something out of a breathtaking film. From a distance, Raul observes with Ciri, who is slowly recovering. He shouts a warning to Taiho, urging him to exercise caution, for even lethal strikes won't keep this beast down for long. They exchange looks, and the creature turns around. It bears a deep gash in its abdomen, yet, rather than showing concern or pain, it flashes a smug grin. To him, no attack appears sufficient, but Taiho stands firm, radiating golden energy. That alone seems to make the Regenerator reconsider its approach. In his mind, Taiho recalls Ragnar's teachings. He remembers an essential lesson: the god's power isn't merely for healing or amplifying strength. When wielded properly, it can neutralize divine blessings and even nullify special abilities. However, he can't constantly draw on that power. Ragnar advised him that the wisest strategy is to activate it only for decisive strikes. This keeps Taiho from exhausting himself while ensuring every blow is impactful. Now the Regenerator's blood begins to flow freely, and Taiho is poised for round 2. He takes a deep breath and assumes his battle stance. However, he cannot rely on that power indefinitely. Ragnar indicated that it's best applied during critical moments. This ensures Taiho remains fresh, and each blow lands effectively. The Regenerator's blood is now pouring out, and Taiho is prepared for another round. Taiho stays vigilant, ensuring every attack counts. The Regenerator's blood gushes out, and he stands ready for another confrontation. He takes a deep breath and adopts his fighting stance. Opposite him, Marcos clenches his fists, eyes ablaze with anger and anxiety. Both warriors charge at one another, desperate to end this conflict once and for all. Their swords clash violently, creating sparks that illuminate the darkness. Marcos is being pushed back, leaving Raul in utter disbelief. He can hardly fathom what unfolds before him. Tao is supporting an adversary that once seemed unbeatable. Even Ciri is stunned, yet she feels trepidation. Despite Taiho's impressive skills, he battles in solitude, and fighting alone does lead to quicker fatigue. Eventually, his strength will deplete. When it does, he will be in peril. Ciri races toward him, eager to assist in any way she can. Her instinct is spot on. Marcos spots an opening and, consumed by rage, swings with all his might. It's a lethal blow. Taiho senses the danger and leaps back just in time. Had he hesitated for a single second, his head might have been severed. He jumps away, creating distance between himself and his foe. Yet he acts swiftly. As soon as his feet touch the ground, he lunges forward again. The Regenerator raises his blade, poised for a downward slash, seeking to catch Taiho off guard. But Tai has devised a strategy as he advances. The golden aura enveloping him intensifies. He's determined to finish this fight. However, an unseen trap awaits him. It transpires in a heartbeat. Taiho darts forward like a bolt of lightning, stabbing Cho in the gut. Cho cannot even react. Were it not for Endu's blessing, he could have met his end right there. The Regenerator doesn't hesitate, charging at Taiho. He raises his blade, ready to deliver the final blow. Ciri leaps in front of the beast, intercepting the attack at the last moment. The blade narrowly misses Taiho, only grazing his side. Her unexpected move astonishes Marcos. Ciri admits she lacks the strength to injure him, but can push him away as many times as necessary. Taiho sees his moment and channels all his might into his next strike. He plunges his sword into the Regenerator's stomach, then leaps into the air, executing a crushing blow that finally puts the monster down for good. It appears this Regenerator is done regenerating. Meanwhile, back in the elf village, confusion reigns. How could their seemingly indestructible regenerating foe be defeated? These creatures are relentless in their hunt for our hero, prompting the purple entity to permit Malice to unleash the basilisk. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Taiho is rendered unconscious, and everyone scrambles to revive him. Ralph turns to Ciri, questioning their next move since Taiho remains unresponsive. Should they linger? Ciri expresses unease about the entire situation and instructs the group to leave at once. They must escape and regroup with Gander as quickly as possible. She notes that it isn't essential for everyone to gather at the same spot. Just then, they hear a sound that sends chills down their spines. Ralph whispers, "The basilisk!" Ciri instructs him to indicate where to go, then commands the group to disperse and locate Gander. The warriors grow emotional, vowing to reunite in Valhalla if things take a turn for the worse. Stur cuts their sentimental moment short, urging them to move. Ralph asks what she plans to do about Taiho since he still lies unconscious. She tells him to trust her with Taiho and to make haste. He wishes her well and makes his exit. Ciri crouches beside Taiho, channeling her ability as pink light envelops her. She summons her Saga wolf witch, transforming into a wolf form. Grabbing Taiho, she bolts into the forest. This mission is intense. She's determined to bring him back. Time passes, and while Taiho remains unconscious, a voice beckons him. He thinks it's Hela calling him, but upon opening his eyes, he finds Ciri hovering over him, startlingly close. This jolts him fully awake. His face flushes crimson as he tries to speak, but his words jumble together before his mouth can utter anything foolish. Ciri places a hand over his lips, urging him to remain silent and still. That's when he notices the massive monsters surrounding them. Ciri clarifies that she had to lie on him so her goddess's veil could conceal them both. However, any sudden movement would shatter the spell. And if that happens, death is certain. Taiho inquires why she didn't just abandon him and escape with the others. She pauses, looking at him, then averts her gaze, saying he possesses something unique. Few warriors awaken such potential, and losing him would be a devastating blow to Valhalla. She states how much she enjoys fighting alongside him and wishes to continue. Her words hit Taiho deeply, reminding him of his former teammates who believed in him just like Ciri does now. But this has gone beyond a mere game. The dangers are tangible, and he can't disappoint those who put their faith in him. Before he can reply, Ciri folds her arms and exhales heavily. She mentions believing he'd never awaken, explaining she did everything possible to rouse him. Taiho freezes. His cheeks flush once more, but before his thoughts wander, Ciri scans the forest with a serious expression. Now that he's conscious, everything can move. She activates her Saga, transforming into a colossal wolf. Taiho engages his Dragon Commander Saga, which envelops Ciri in blue light, enhancing her senses. She perceives numerous creatures lurking in the trees. Snakes of average size surge forward at once. Taiho slices through several, but more attack in relentless waves. Suddenly, a chill runs down his spine. Something far worse is approaching. The ground trembles, and trees are uprooted as if they were mere twigs. Something enormous is drawing near. It's the basilisk from earlier. Ciri quickly cautions Taiho not to meet its gaze, lest it paralyze him. The creature lunges forward, and Ciri narrowly dodges as Taiho jumps aside to evade the strike. She gains distance, and they both face the creature once more, but it's already fixated on them. The basilisk opens its maw, thick green venom oozing from its fangs. Then it unleashes a massive burst of that toxic stream. Before impact, Taiho raises his hand, activating magic on his arm. The poison dissipates. Banished by divine power, Ciri leaps high above the beast, and Taiho follows with his Storm Warrior Saga, launching off Ciri's back for extra elevation. But he fails. In midair, his gaze locks with the basilisk's, and the monster traps him in its paralyzing stare. For an instant, Taiho's body freezes midair, but he refuses to surrender. He channels divine power anew, locking wills with the beast. The basilisk's death glare clashes against Taiho's divine might. Seizing the moment, he activates his warrior's blade saga, summoning a golden lance poised to obliterate the monster in a single strike. Ciri reverts to her human form. Utterly spent, while Taiho struggles to remain upright, she suggests they take a break. But before he can even nod, Taiho spots a sword embedded in the basilisk's remains. He strides over and yanks it free, only to discover it's merely the handle of a shattered blade. Just as frustration washes over him, Ciri cries out that they are surrounded. They position themselves back to back, ready for a defense, but neither has the strength left to fight. Ciri urged Taiho to retreat to safety while she handled the monsters, but he stands firm, unwilling to abandon her. He activates his runic magic, asserting that they either leave together or not at all. Both take a battle stance, prepared for combat. The monsters surge at them from every direction. Taiho and Ciri are dispatching foes one after another, but the sheer numbers are overwhelming. To make matters worse, another basilisk emerges. In this dire moment, Taiho curses his fate when Ciri delivers more bad news. That vile creature hadn't come alone this time, and right behind it, the rest of the monsters reveal themselves. Now, our hero is ensnared on all sides, and the situation turns grim. Ciri scans the area for an escape route, but finds none. Taiho observes the beasts, and it's clear from his expression that he comprehends the severity. Ciri inquires if he can still fight. Taiho remains silent. He attempts to summon that divine power once more, but nothing materializes. He admits he has perhaps 2 more uses of Sab left, which won't suffice. They're essentially trapped. Yet, Taiho tightens his grip on his sword and assumes a fighting stance regardless. If this is the end, he intends to fight fiercely. Ciri beams, telling him he now sounds like a true warrior. If they're destined to fall, they'll do so together without retreating. Both shout their gods' names and prepare for the onslaught. The monsters roar and charge, but suddenly, something shifts behind them. The silent wights arrive without a sound. Then a voice rings out, announcing their arrival to assist. It's Ralph, and he's not alone. Someone plunges from above, cleaving a monster cleanly in half with a single strike as they land. It's revealed to be Valkyrie Gandler, battle-ready and fierce, but before anyone can rejoice, she yells for everyone to watch out. A basilisk hurtles towards Taiho at breakneck speed, and he's too drained to lift his sword. All he can do is watch, but then something miraculous happens, and the beast collapses dead, cleaved in 2. A basilisk lunges at Taiho with insane speed, and he's too exhausted to lift his sword. All he can do is watch. But then something miraculous happens, and the creature collapses, cleaved in 2. Behind him stands a new figure, blade spinning and a grin plastered on his face. It's Ragnar, assuring that they are safe now because he and the others have arrived. Taiho shouts Ragnar's name, relief radiating from his expression. Ciri's eyes widen in surprise. She whispers Ragnar's name, cheeks flushing red, now fully in her Fendril mode. Taiho glances her way, muttering, "Who would have thought she possessed this side yet?" The battle rages on. Rolf unleashes his Sada, striking down one of the basilisks. This clears a path for everyone to charge in and eliminate the remaining threats. Gandor and Ragnar slash through the chaos. In mere moments, they dispatch all the monsters. Ragnar declares it finished, congratulating them all. They swarm around him like starstruck children. Some express their honor, others can't believe they're meeting the real hero. Meanwhile, Ciri stands frozen, blush creeping across her face, fixated on Ragnar. Taiho ponders. What's all the fuss about this guy? Gan steps up, announcing. The mission is complete. She informs Taiho that she knows he eliminated the Regenerator and she'll relay this to the higher-ups while praising him, admitting that defeating such a foe was no small feat. With a mischievous glint in her eye, she adds that a talent like his won't go unnoticed. Wow, he's collecting Valkyries like some sort of Level Up Manhwa Pokemon as she speaks. Tio feels piercing glares from behind. All the other warriors are itching to take him down. Gondra conjures a portal, and they leap back to Valhalla, where Helda inspects the sword hilt Taiho acquired. She mentions the runas are too damaged to decipher, but this item exudes uniqueness. She feels ancient war energy emanating from it, with nothing to lose. Taiho decides to stow the weapon away, sensing it holds exceptional potential. Helda claps her hands, instructing Tio to return to the temple and report everything to Idon. They commandeer a small boat, heading to the temple along the way. Helda hints that the goddess has a special gift waiting for him. Excitement surges in our boy, who has only received minor blessings previously. He steps onto the engraved floor. Discarding the golden apple, kneeling, and summoning the goddess with a warm smile, she acknowledges his report. Thanks to you, they thwarted the giant's plans, vanquished a formidable enemy, and even courted a stunning warrior. That last remark sends Taiho's face ablaze. As the goddess chuckles, she reveals she has two gifts, but he can only choose one. The first is a cloak from Olympus that bestows the ability to transform into a Pegasus. The second is a magical pouch that can store anything. Irrespective of size, both are incredibly sought after, but he must make a choice. After contemplating, Taiho opts for the pouch. Helda raises an eyebrow. Surprised, she expected him to select the cloak. But Tio explains that becoming a Pegasus wouldn't serve much purpose without a companion to soar with, especially since he's currently the sole member of his legion. It simply doesn't add up. Also, it's common gamer sense to always expand your inventory. Helda laughs, admitting she doesn't quite grasp what he means, but shrugs it off. They return. And Hela informs him that starting today, he'll begin lessons with his new teacher, asking if he's excited. Taiho chuckles awkwardly. Personally, he holds a low opinion of that bum. Yet in this world, that guy's a legend, so curiosity tinges his feelings. Meanwhile, Ragnar lounges at Taiho's house gazing at the sky. He remarks about the weather, claiming it's disgustingly pleasant today. The scene shifts, and Taiho and Ragnar engage in conversation. Ragnar asks Taiho how far he's progressed with Helda, causing our boy to flush pink as he questions the meaning behind it. That sly bastard quickly shifts tone, claiming he meant his development, suggesting Taiho's mind was steeped in indecent thoughts, which prompts Taiho to respond. Look who's talking! Ragnar then rises. He mentions that Hela requested he teach him about divinity. However, since Taiho is still a novice, he'll save that for later and start with the basics, but warns that he won't hold his hand and insists he must learn independently without wasting time. He challenges Taiho to step up and exchange blows, but Taiho struggles to keep pace. Ragnar urges Taiho not to hold back and to unleash everything he's got. He further explains that sagas form the foundation of a warrior. Just because he wields godly power doesn't grant him the luxury to slack off. And then he begins trash-talking to rile Tai, which succeeds. Taiho recklessly charged in, and before anyone realized, the boy was face down in the dirt. Ragnar warned Taiho about two critical aspects to enhance. First, he needed to master an offensive saga. For a lower-ranked warrior, many sagas are available, yet most are mere support types. They're helpful, but they lack a real impact. While Taiva pondered his ultimate move, Ragnar stressed the importance of reviewing all his sagas once more. Seeing Tao's confusion, Ragnar clarified that his sagas remain unfinished. Many low-tier warriors mistakenly believe their sagas are immutable, but they evolve with the wielder. A Sava represents a tale passed down through ages, and like all tales, it shifts based on the storyteller. With that knowledge, he began to walk away. He told Taiho that today's training was done, but reminded him not to overlook anything before departing. He added one last thing, urging Taiho to maintain that divine aura constantly, whether eating, sitting, or sleeping. If Taiho could manage that, He'd significantly enhance both power storage and duration as evening approached. Held was at home preparing a meal for him, while Taiho engaged in his lessons with Ragnar, noticing the goofy grin on his face. Ragnar asked Taiho if he had something impressive to show. Taiho grinned and activated his warrior's blade Saga. A standard sword materialized, and while showcasing it, he mentioned that this sword is what he typically conjures. He then pulled out the broken hilt from his last mission. Holding it, he activated his Saga, and the shattered weapon repaired itself, transforming into a full blade. Taiho explained that when he holds the hilt and employs his Saga, it gains the relic's attributes, evolving into epic-level gear. Ragnar stood there, astounded, thinking, what on earth is wrong with this guy? Does he genuinely plan to use that as his ultimate technique? Perhaps due to his origins from another realm, he thinks entirely differently than everyone else. As they acclimated to this revelation, Helbus arrived, clutching a scroll. She relayed that Valkyrie Riskrid had urgently requested him. She's investigating Alfima and has spotted peculiar occurrences. Tai was taken aback, realizing she had specifically requested his presence. But then his excitement surged, thinking it was the ideal chance to test out his new weapon, noticing the silly grin on his face. Held pouted, questioning if he was truly that thrilled about seeing Ridded. Tao recognized he'd really messed up and quickly clarified it wasn't like that. But Hela continued to behave like a jealous partner. He then awkwardly asked if he could leave now. Meanwhile, Ragnar observed him, internally berating. This guy's a complete idiot. The scene shifts to a dark, eerie location where sinister figures monitored everything through spiderwebs. A servant approached, stating, "The giants have begun mobilizing, and Valhalla has dispatched more warriors." The mysterious figure offered a wicked grin, expressing anticipation for the chaos to come. Later, Tai found himself back in the dark elf territory. But this time, he had company. The Wu Legion was called in as well as they arrived. A towering, muscular warrior approached Taiho, saying, "So, you're the illustrious Taiho. I've heard plenty about you." Members of Odin's Legion. Despite being of lower rank, he was clearly in charge. He revealed he had 30 black horses readied since other legions had sent reinforcements. As they rode through the dark woods, Taiho began to feel uneasy. Something was amiss, making him think, why does this feel so unsettling? He wished he were riding a dragon or the Silent Whites instead. Siri overheard this and burst into laughter. Look at him, already developing fancy tastes like a true warrior now. But there's definitely something eerie happening. Ralph appeared visibly annoyed about something. Taiho noticed and inquired what was bothering him. Siri rolled her eyes, explaining they pulled him back from vacation for this foolish mission. The muscular guy indicated they were nearing base and urged them to pick up the pace. They sprinted forward when suddenly, everything halted. Right ahead, a massive pack of NLs blocked the path. Dark, hideous creatures with glowing red eyes glared from the shadows. As soon as Siri recognized they were about to be cut off, she shouted not to slow down. They charged straight into the fray, slicing through countless foes. Had they hesitated for a mere second, disaster would have awaited them. They broke free, but then an eerie sound reverberated all around them. Someone yelled to look up, and a squadron of harpies began diving directly at them. Siri was slashing at the harpies while Rahl struggled to stay alive, facing overwhelming odds. His Saga is useless without his crossbow. Tensions rise as Taiho clutches his sword hilt tightly. The harpies circle menacingly, and a golden aura begins to emanate from Taiho. Everyone gasps, asking, what the hell? But the harpies retreat, frightened by the blinding light. Taiho unleashes his warrior sword Saga, instantly mending his shattered sword. The air is filled with golden light, pulsating with immense power. In a frenzy, the harpies scatter as Taiho unleashes energy waves, sending them tumbling away. Everyone gazes at him, astonished at how he just obliterated their foes in a single strike. Even Taiho appears bashful, overwhelmed by their attention. With the way clear, the team forges ahead. As they approach their destination, the heavyset member of Odin's Legion turns to Taiho, declaring, "Welcome to the battlefield." In that moment, Taiho grasps the gravity of the situation. Below, in the vast crater, a real war unfolds. It's complete mayhem as metal clashes echo around them. The team descends, and Siri acts swiftly. She activates her saw, launching arrows in all directions. The astonishing part is her accuracy. One target after another falls until she commands the group to advance. Meanwhile, Taiho clutches his broken sword hilt and ignites his warrior Saga. To his surprise, instead of a sword, a crossbow materializes as he pulls the trigger. 3 arrows shoot forth, obliterating everything in their path. Once more, the group watches in awe at his display. Taiho feels a surge of confidence, believing this will speed their journey to the center. And indeed, after several minutes of relentless movement, they arrive at the battlefield's heart. There stands Valkyrie Riskrid, commanding troops amidst the chaos. Spotting Taiho, she greets him with a warm smile, pleased to see him. Without delay, he inquires about the situation. She replies promptly, It's nearly secured, but there's an issue. The enemy wields something akin to their steel rain, and they've been unleashing it for quite some time. Just then, more trouble appears, looking skyward. Briskridge yells for everyone to scatter abruptly. The sky fractures above them, not with rain, but with colossal rocks plummeting into the battlefield. The boulders crash down, creating deep craters and flattening everything in their wake. Yet, the true threat lies within them, as knolls begin to emerge, some towering in size. Taiho shouts a warning. Another one is descending. The rock nearly crushes them, narrowly missing the entire group by mere inches. The air thickens with tension, as uncertainty glimmers in everyone's eyes. Then, out of nowhere, a fireball shoots across the sky, veering toward the Dark Elf village. Razgrid approaches him urgently, insisting he must head to the Dark Elf village at once. That fireball was headed there, indicating they're likely under siege. She insists that on this battlefield, he's the only one she can depend on in such a crisis. Taiho nods, promising to find a horse and speed off, but she interrupts, stating there's no time for that. She begins to undrape her own cloak. He blushes profusely. She explains that the cloak will allow him to transform into a dragon and instructs him to choose someone trustworthy to accompany him. Taiho envisions how everyone will react when they discover what transpired here. Without a moment's hesitation, he hands it to Ciri. Moments later, they soar high above the battlefield, from behind. A massive rock that almost crushed them gives birth to a new monster. This one is colossal, contrasting sharply with the creature previously encountered at the Black Castle. Riskid ponders that, while this giant is smaller, it exudes far greater power, which is understandable. Giants possessed runes just like warriors, and their strength escalated with each kill. The potency of its aura suggests this one has been on a rampage. Its roar reverberates across the battlefield, even making Valhalla's warriors stagger. The giant triggers his saga, the roar of madness, provoking a frenzy among all the monsters. Meanwhile, Taiho and Ciri arrive at the elf village, only to confront yet another giant lying in wait. This one bears a different shape compared to the others. Tegel quickly deduces it's a mage, and her fears are confirmed as the creature begins casting a vicious spell aimed at the village. Panic sweeps through the villagers while Taiho urges Ciri to get closer, so he can divert its attention. Switching his crossbow for a lance, he hurls it with every ounce of strength he can muster. Replacing his crossbow with a lance, he launches it with all his might. Yet, the weapon shatters against an unseen barrier as more shields emerge around the behemoth. His ruse to grab the giant's focus succeeds. The creature zeroes in on them. However, this only escalates the situation as it releases spell after spell. The elves find themselves caught in the turmoil from above. Taiho wonders if this keeps up. Their village will be reduced to ashes, and countless lives will be extinguished unless they swiftly bring down the monster. Meanwhile, in the depths of the 9 realms, something stirs. A figure sits upon a throne, casually observing the chaos unfold when a harpy swoops in, landing on his finger with an urgent message. It turns out that bizarre spider creature is called Vault, the one responsible for Malice's betrayal of Valhalla. This was all part of a plot to locate something known as the Seed. She curses the cowardly spider for lurking in darkness despite having a straightforward way to obtain the Seed. Yet, they all choose to ignore it. The plan she mentions involves burning everything to the ground, reminiscent of the Great War. You might be wondering who this mastermind is. This formidable figure is known as the Giant of Strength, Harad. She stands as one of the 5 giant generals serving Loki, while Harad concocts her fiery plan. Our boy struggles to survive back in the village. Taiho is fed up with the giants and declares that if the giant keeps hurling projectiles, he will retaliate in kind. He begins his saga, summoning a tempest of spears and launching everything in a frenzied assault. The issue remains that the pesky barrier is still intact, preventing any spears from piercing through. But he continues regardless. Both sides unleash their attacks, with spears clashing against spells and igniting colossal explosions all around. Ciri appears anxious, questioning whether their efforts are actually achieving anything. Tao likens it to being trapped in a video game. He explains that if they relentlessly pound on the barrier, it will eventually weaken enough to shatter. The scene shifts to a different battlefield where Rusgrid confronts yet another giant. She recognizes this opponent possesses the strength to deliver a genuine challenge, but as the commander, retreating is not an option. They both charge forward, colliding with immense force, generating a massive shockwave. Meanwhile, Taiho is still ensnared in his desperate battle. His strategy has yet to bear fruit. Spears vanish against the barrier, but he refuses to give up. He ponders their next move, or else the village will vanish entirely. Glancing around, he witnesses homes engulfed in flames with elves scrambling in panic. Suddenly, a peculiar group of elves appear, clad in luminous helmets with blinking lights. Taiho can't believe his eyes. One of them proclaims they are the Dark Elf Fire Brigade. They urge him to leave the flames to them and concentrate on the giant. They raise their hands, casting a spell that conjures storm clouds out of thin air. Rain cascades down and extinguishes the flames instantly. Everything seems fine for a fleeting moment. But then the giant bellows once more. His magical barrier dissipates, rendered ineffective by the rain as a fire wizard. His vulnerability suddenly becomes glaringly apparent. Taiho comprehends the situation right away and silently thanks the Fire Brigade elves. They have just given him the perfect opportunity. He activates his Saga and hurls his spear with all his might, instructing Ciri to strike from the rear, using his spear as a shield. He knows the time has come to unleash the legendary sword. He leaps into his final assault just as Ragnar taught him. His descent rate is at 18% now. Thus, he executes the ancestral dragon barrage, blasting a colossal hole straight through the giant. Yet, Tidou catches sight of something strange. Inside the giant lies a luminous emerald stone, serving as its core. Tidou calls out to Ciri for assistance. She agrees and merges their sagas. She leads with dark purple energy enveloping her spear. Then Taiho adds his power. They charge together, resulting in an explosion that utterly obliterates the giant. But before they can revel in their success, the unbelievable occurs. They are pulled into the blast as if a portal has opened within it. The remaining elves stand bewildered, watching Taiho and Ciri vanish without a trace. Yet, the ordeal is far from over. As they awaken, floating in a bizarre dark void brimming with magical energy, Tao surveys his surroundings, confused, questioning their whereabouts since they defeated the giant. Ciri remains composed, clarifying that the destruction of the core created the small portal. She senses potent magic surrounding them, yet mentions it could simply be residual traces from the Great War, catching Tio's interest. Ever since discovering the sword piece, he has pondered the legacy of those ancient warriors. Now he's standing at the very spot where battles raged. He believes he might uncover more sword fragments here and prepares to investigate when Ciri's stomach growls loudly. Tango retrieves an assortment of food from his enchanted pouch. Ciri, astonished by the abundance Tao carries, inquires if he acquired it from Idun. He chuckles, revealing that the goddess Idun gifted it to him as a reward. Ciri muses that this journey will be tougher than she anticipated, prompting Tio to ask for clarification. It turns out that after the chaos with the Regenerator and the Basilisk, Valkyrie Gander wants them to persuade Taiho to join her legion. She perceives him as a one-of-a-kind warrior, but given the goddess's treatment of Taiho, she definitely won't be letting him go. Taiho merely chuckles, affirming this notion. Additionally, he cannot abandon Idun's legion since Helda is also part of it. After they finish eating, he stretches and states, "Time to move out of here." Ciri questions how they will do that when they have no clue where they are, but then he pulls out the sword hilt, remarking, "Maybe this little guy knows the way out," standing on a cliff's edge. Taiho extends his arm, directing the sword forward. Ciri glances skeptically. Wondering what this fool is attempting now, he remains there for a while. But nothing occurs. Cursing Taiho inwardly, Ciri transforms back, leaving them to wander aimlessly in the void. As they proceed, Ciri starts a conversation, mentioning that in Valhalla, it's rare for anyone to ask about others' lives while alive. Yet she is genuinely intrigued about Tai. His stories are too extraordinary. Taiho appears slightly embarrassed and, with a bashful smile, reveals that he was the world champion in his past life. Ciri stares at him in disbelief, exclaiming, "So I've been walking alongside a living legend." Then he activates something again, and what he sees leaves him in awe. Before them lies a field brimming with weapons, not just any weapons, but high-tier legendary artifacts. Being a true gamer, Taiho shifts into full loot mode. He begins grabbing everything in sight: a helmet, a massive sword, a spear, and a shield. Even the broken ones are tossed into his magical bag. Ciri watches in dazed silence, unsure if she should laugh or cry. She questions whether he really intends to take even the damaged items. He replies, while still collecting gear that undoubtedly all could serve a purpose later. It's then that he spots a mischievous little belt shimmering brighter than the rest. That item comes with powerful buffs. The belt enhances both strength and endurance. Ciri recognizes the symbol on it and mentions that the mark belongs to the Legion of Freya. Taiho inquires who Freya is, and she explains that Freya embodies love, beauty, war, and magic. This prompts Tio to wonder if the Ivan goddess possesses similar talents. He suggests that Ciri should also find something unique for herself, since everything looks one of a kind. Hesitating slightly, she then sheepishly pulls out a dagger. They continue walking until Taiho proclaims he's satisfied, though he looks absurd in this skewed helmet. He jokes about needing to make space in the bag when, out of nowhere, the sword he took from the basilisk starts shaking. Taiho carefully pulls it out, and an aura begins to emanate from the blade, pointing toward a tiny dagger. Taiho picks it up and questions Ciri if she has any knowledge of what the sword is indicating. She speculates that they might come from the same origin. She theorizes that perhaps the inhabitants of this world fought alongside Valhalla's warriors, and the weapons were forged by the same hands. Tio agrees, feeling it makes logical sense. That could explain why he has been unable to trace the sword's origins previously, so he claims the dagger too, as the sword has already proven immensely valuable. With everything organized, they continue onward. After some more walking, they arrive at the edge of a vast crater, and Ciri recognizes its significance. It's the site of Odin's army clash. She then notices magic coalescing in its center, where a colossal skeleton looms, having rested since its master's demise. Who knows what will happen when they descend to investigate? Ciri urges Taiho to gather some intel. Taiho nods, revealing he can see its name. This foe was the legendary hellhound Gar. Ciri panics, warning Taiho that they should flee from this place. Just then, the bones start to assemble, and with a surge of magic, the beast is resurrected. That infamous creature stood before them, and it hadn't arrived alone. It brought along a horde, and soon the battlefield became overrun with monsters. Taiho grips his sword, poised for combat, when an unexpected twist occurs. The monsters ignore them entirely and begin battling among themselves. Ciri yearned to escape, yet Taiho seized her, indicating the monsters around them, insisting they couldn't leave like this. They had to face the boss battle head-on, in that instant. Ciri's only desire was to beat this foe senseless, but she restrained herself. She instructed him to mount her. Her tactic was straightforward dive directly into the boss at full throttle. That monster let out a deafening roar that nearly rendered both heroes deaf, but the worst was yet to come. A bolt of lightning crashed down from above, causing Ciri to lose her balance immediately. Both began plummeting toward the ground once they landed. Taiho checked if she was unharmed. That's when this jerk realized he had landed squarely on her. He blushed deep crimson, apologizing fervently, claiming it was unintentional. Ciri reassured him she was fine. Before she could rise, the monsters swarmed. Taiho started brawling with them, buying precious time for Ciri to stand once she was up. They charged at the boss together. As they closed in, the boss unleashed a torrent of fire breath, which they evaded effortlessly. Being a simple-minded creature, the boss became preoccupied with the other monsters. Taiho gestured to Ciri. She activated her sana and unleashed arrows at the boss. Although they inflicted minimal damage, they managed to capture the beast's attention. The creature opened its mouth, but before it could strike, Ciri transformed into a wolf and escaped. She yelled that regular attacks were useless. Taiho had to unleash his ultimate ability. He activated his Saga Storm Warrior, drawing forth his legendary sword. The power of the gods surged through the blade, and he struck the boss directly. He thought he had dealt a critical blow, perhaps even severed a leg, but it merely left a tiny scratch. Ciri urged him to climb onto her back again. She intended to replicate their combo attack, but the boss thwarted her by unleashing fire breath once again. Taiho realized they couldn't defeat this beast with half-hearted strikes, so he asked Ciri to stall for him. He activated his Dragon Eyes Saga, beginning to scan their surroundings. Taiho noticed something unusual just below the monster's name. A description appeared: absolute defense. Suddenly it clicked. He observed that the boss hadn't shifted from his position since the battle commenced. This could only indicate one thing: he was protecting something. Meanwhile, Ciri discovered something as well. She recognized that normal attacks would be ineffective. However, her curse ability might work well since she was in her wolf witch form. She leaped high into the air and sank her teeth into the boss, and her instincts proved correct. Her curse ability activated, transforming the monster into a Grodon, but her stamina was dwindling fast. She turned to Taiho, insisting he needed to act quickly. She couldn't hold on much longer. But Taiho dashed straight toward the monsters instead. He channeled his power of divinity and dispatched the smaller foes effortlessly. In an instant, he pinpointed the key to slaying the beast, a curious rock embedded in the ground. He summoned all his strength to yank it out as the boss charged directly at him. Just inches away, he finally pulled it free. With it, the monster vanished. Taiho pointed at the chasm left by the crystal, declaring it the exit. She screamed for Taiho to hop onto her back. Without a hint of hesitation, he leapt behind them. The ghostly warriors vanquished the last remnants of the monsters. One warrior proclaimed that the beast had been defeated, and cheers erupted. Yet someone questioned where the two had disappeared to. A warrior caught sight of the portal on the ground. They gathered around it one by one, leaping into the portal, smiles plastered across their faces. One even exclaimed they were headed to Valhalla. Meanwhile, Razgrid and the giant were still locked in a fierce struggle, trading blows without relent. Then boom. The portal opened, and our hero Taiho emerged unexpectedly right amidst the chaos. On the ground, Razgrid asked incredulously, "How did you get here so quickly?" The giant noticed the crystal Taiho carried, and his eyes gleamed. This fellow understood it was the seed their king had been pursuing all along. He reached out with his colossal hand, attempting to seize it. Razgrid shouted for everyone to protect Taiho, lunging in to block the giant's grasp. That's when things took a wild turn. She beheld the spirits of ancient Valhalla warriors, standing resolute, hindering the giant's hand. One spirit proclaimed they had to join the fray. Trying to grab it, Razgrid shouts for everyone to shield Taiho and leaps in with her sword to confront the giant. That's when the wild events unfold. She observes the spectral forms of ancient Valhalla warriors restraining the giant's hand. One ghost declares they must join the fray. As more phantoms arise on the battlefield, the giant finds himself cornered. The ghost leader approaches Razgrid, seeking permission to fight. Claiming they must defend Asgard one final time, without hesitation, she grants them the freedom to act the moment she does. The ghosts regain their corporeal forms, charging fiercely towards the giant. While the others engage the smaller monsters, the giant bellows a thunderous roar, eager to join his ranks. But Razgrid swoops in, yelling that she's his true adversary. Ralph questions Taiho and Ciri about their rapid return, considering they left mere hours ago. Taiho speculates that time operates differently in the void they just escaped from. But Ciri is unbothered. She's itching to dive into the fray. Chio holds her back, insisting they should prioritize the boss monster while letting others tackle the lesser threats. She transforms into her wolf form, and they're soaring through the skies once more. Taiho notices Ciri's fatigue. She's fought 2 grueling battles back-to-back without rest. He advises her to take it easy, explaining that their goal isn't to kill the giant, but rather to inflict sufficient damage to draw its focus. He elaborates that Razgrid and the giant are evenly matched, so if they create even a brief distraction, it could sway the fight in their favor. Taiho channels his energy and begins hurling lances at the giant relentlessly. After striking 3 times, anger flashes across the giant's face. He glowers at Taiho, dismissing his strikes as mere irritations. Once he finishes with Razgrid, he promises to personally send Taiho to the depths of hell. Yet, Taiho continues to unleash his spears. Ciri remarks, "It seems he's not paying all that much attention to you." But as Razgrid charges again, the giant becomes laser-focused on her, disregarding everything else around. This was the opening Taiho had been waiting for, infusing his lance with divine energy. He throws with flawless precision. It crashes into the giant's hand, thwarting the massive attack he was preparing. Razgrid seizes the moment, activating her godlike powers to bring the giant down. With the formidable foe defeated, the monster horde finds itself in disarray, and the warriors, invigorated, press forward to annihilate the remaining creatures easily. Taiho perches on a cliff, declaring their victory before finally dropping down to rest. Ciri watches him, reflecting on the unique qualities of this relentless warrior. She wants him on their side for as long as fate permits. With the battle wrapped up, the ghost warriors prepare to return. Their leader expresses gratitude to Razgrid for allowing them to fight and requests her guidance back to Valhalla. Razgrid reciprocates the thanks, stating Valhalla will always have its doors open for them. She adorns a radiant white outfit and summons the Bifrost to escort them home, before departing. The warriors glance at Taiho, promising to share tales of his bravery. Razgrid informs the group of her necessity to leave, as she must lead the ghost warriors back. She reassures everyone that when they reunite in the Grand Hall, none will go unacknowledged. Each will receive their rewards, especially Taiho and Ciri, whose bravery essentially salvaged the entire conflict. Taiho approaches her, returning her fur coat. Razgrid turns to Ciri, asking what it felt like to carry Taiho through the chaos. Ciri replies that fulfilling her duty was all before she departs. She informs them that Ronleaf and Gander will arrive soon to take over, but before she leaves, she approaches Taiho and gently kisses his forehead. Taiho freezes in surprise. His heart races as he begins pondering potential names for their future children when he turns and sees she has bestowed a kiss on Ciri as well. He realizes this kiss mirrors the one Hela gave him earlier. It's merely a Valkyrie ritual in a distant frozen wasteland of Utenheim. Tension escalates. Her father is furious, not due to their defeat. She was unconcerned about the outcome of this battle. It was meant to sap Valhalla's power. What truly infuriates her is that the coveted seed they had been pursuing is now in Taiho's possession. Their secrets loom at risk of exposure. Anxieties rise over how the king might react, when the evolved one from before advised her not to overthink it, suggesting perhaps the king desired this outcome all along. She voiced her concerns. Time flows on, and eventually, 2 more Valkyries arrive. They land beside Taiho and Ciri. Taiho relays everything that transpired and presents the seed. Reginald Leaf examines the object, uncertain of its nature, but relieved they thwarted their foes' ambitions. She retrieves the seed from Taiho, places it in a beautifully ornate chest, and leans in to kiss him gently on the forehead, although he has experienced this before. He can't shake off the flustered feeling. Yet, seeing Ciri receive the same treatment, he muses that perhaps this is the custom here. Turning to Gander, he inquires if she would grant them a blessing too. She chuckles, noting that few dare to ask a Valkyrie for such a favor, but she agrees. Tio shuts his eyes, believing one more blessing wouldn't hurt. He anticipates another kiss on the forehead, but Gander surprises him by kissing his cheek. Armoy felt elated after that. Just as the Valkyries are about to depart, guess who shows up Held? She arrives just in time to witness Gander's unique blessing. Her expression reveals her feelings. With envy in her eyes, she interrogates Taiho about what transpired here. Taiho stumbles over his words as he tries to come up with a plausible explanation. Siri, observing from the sidelines, finds their antics entertaining. Soon, the transport back to Valhalla is prepared. Taiho steps into a coffin for the journey, while Held remains relentless. She questions Taiho if he enjoyed receiving all those blessings. He fears he may not survive this encounter. She then leans in, tucks her hair behind her ear, and bestows her own blessing upon him. They both blush deeply. Meanwhile, deep within the roots of a Dracell, Odin and Thor walked in silence. Odin drew out the seed and asked Mimir if this was the very thing Fenrir had been pursuing. Mimir examined it and affirmed. It was indeed a fragment of Garma's soul. If all parts were united, Garma could arise once more. Odin frowned, stating that the reward seemed insufficient compared to the effort. Thor then posed the question of whether Garma was tied to Fenrir. Mimir verified it. Garma's howl could awaken Fenrir. If Fenrir stirred, he would break free and hunt down Odin. And when that day arrives, the Allfather would confront his four forebears. Meanwhile, in the frozen wastelands of Jotunheim, dire news is on the horizon. The Loki, wearing a smirk, informs Ugar Loki that the 5 generals are already mobilizing. He cackles like a maniac, proclaiming the true battles are only nearing. Back beneath Eggdrakel, Mimir warns that even Garma's spirit doesn't need to be whole. Just a single howl from one fragment could trigger Ragnarok. Odin adds that among them. Someone possesses this unique Saga ability which could hasten the apocalypse. Thor clenches his fists, fully aware of who they imply. Loki, that treacherous coward, without hesitation. Odin hands the seed fragment to Thor, commanding him to destroy it, even acknowledging its immense power. Odin has made his decision. Eliminating the risk is their only chance to buy them some time. Meanwhile, the formidable goddess has returned. Our hero returned to the temple to report. She begins to praise him, stating she even heard Valhalla's warriors chanting her name. Idun graces him with one of her rare, radiant smiles. Then she says it's time for his reward. Taiho beams with anticipation, expecting the legendary cloak that would allow him to become a Pegasus. This has been his dream. But Idun has other ideas. She giggles and indicates he must choose again. She has prepared 2 rewards for him once more. The first reward is, of course, the cloak that grants him the power of Pegasus, which he has been fantasizing about, and the second is a saddle. This remarkable item lets him ride any creature, irrespective of size, species, or strength. No limits exist. His imagination fills with possibilities. He envisions himself as a colossal falcon carrying someone on his back. As he exits the temple, he collides with Hela and Ragnar, who have been eagerly waiting outside. One glance at his expression, and they instantly recognize he has chosen something extraordinary. Ragnar observes that Taiho appears different and stronger, suggesting they should intensify their training. But Helda interjects, reminding them they just returned from the battlefield and should probably recover rather than punishing themselves. That's when Taiho recalls something crucial. Since they aren't training, he requests their assistance with something else. They all head to his cabin, where Taiho starts emptying an odd assortment of items. They gathered these treasures from the battleground of the gods. Ragnar looks baffled and bursts out laughing, jokingly asking if Taiho has turned into a dumpster diver. Most weapons are broken, rusty, and appear utterly useless. However, Helda steps forward, brushing her fingers across a battered weapon, and claims she can still sense its magical essence. Ragnar concurs and proposes they try restoring the weapons to their original legions in the Level Up Manhwa. Taiho embraces the concept, and they dive into their work. They meticulously analyze runes, magical signatures, and forge markings. Each legion in Valhalla leaves a unique imprint on their weapons. They strive to pair each blade with its storied past. Hours drift by, and then Held suddenly halts in front of a particular dagger, her gaze locked onto it. After a stretch of silence, Ragnar speculates it may not belong to any typical unit, perhaps resembling Taiho's own sword, a mere anomaly in the Level Up Manhwa. Inspired by this thought, Taiho decides to utilize his unique ability. He seizes the dagger and concentrates, channeling his power. As he does, the rune glimmers with a blue light, but then nothing occurs. Just as Taiho prepares to set it down, his eyes suddenly ignite, projecting vivid images onto the wall. The vision unveils a warrior, unfamiliar to them all, who sails through a turbulent sea towards a foreboding, shadowy island. She exclaims she has finally discovered the place shrouded in myths. Upon entering the castle, she finds bones strewn about, remnants of those who came before. She recalls whispers of the Queen of Shadows, rumored to be an evil figure who devoured souls and bathed in the blood of maidens. Yet, she vows not to believe anything until she witnesses it firsthand. When she ultimately faces the Queen, she is astounded. The Queen is nothing like the tales claimed. Instead, she is a kind woman who even takes her on as a student. Years unravel. Enduring harsh trials, she grows increasingly powerful. As the time to depart the island arrives, the maiden gifts her a spear forged from the bones of ancient sea monsters. With that spear in hand, she faced no defeat until she encountered that wretched Loki. He vanquished her effortlessly, declaring that her family, friends, and everything she cherished were erased from existence. She was left with absolutely nothing. He merely turns and walks away. Yet the lady lunges at him, intent on his destruction. But that cad is merely toying with her. He glances back, and with that single action, her spear and her reality are obliterated. The vision abruptly cuts off, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Breaking the stillness, Ragnar asserts that these were fragments of Shu's life. Tidus questions the identity of the warrior, and Ragnar clarifies it was Shu, the mightiest warrior from the obliterated world. He adds that if he were to compare, Shu was on par with Valhalla's legendary figures. That revelation astounds Taiho, but then Taiho spots something unusual. To his surprise, he can now decipher the name etched into the dagger fragments Guyel. Ragnar exclaims, "Now, it all makes sense why the Saga failed before." He had warned Guy against using his Saga on it, since they had no clue what kind of jinxes it might harbor. Taiho inquires about these jinxes. Ragnar elaborates that jinxes are powerful spiritual bindings that allow one to borrow strength at the cost of an oath, given Shu's unwavering resolve. Her weapon's jinxes might surpass Taiho's capacity to manage. The weapon may not even accept him as its master, potentially turning against him. But from the vision, Taiho sensed something different. It felt as though the weapon was beckoning him, indicating the level he must attain. He realizes merely possessing Guyel is insufficient. He must earn the right to wield it. Ragnar responds with a nod, affirming he is now speaking with conviction. The scene transitions, they find themselves back at the house. Tio queries Held about possible mounts. He mentions it need not be extravagant like those from other regions, just suitable for travel. And get this, he picked a saddle with thoughts of Ciri. He muses he shouldn't voice that aloud, fearing she might deliver payback for such thoughts. Held informs him that Idun's legion lacks a designated mount. Ragnar proposes Tio could purchase a horse in Vanaheim, but then shifts his tone, suggesting merely acquiring transport won't suit a warrior's needs. He proposes they capture one themselves. There's a region near the Valhalla and Olympus border teeming with griffins. Taiho could secure his own mount there. Elated, Held agrees to join him. They extend an invitation to Ciri, who is currently on leave in the last battle. Ciri awakened her divine aura after her connection with Taiho. However, Fangr felt caught in a tight spot with her idol before her, unable to appear weak, even as my girl was reaching her limits. Ragnar had relentlessly made them the main Tahan for extended periods. Finally, he declared it was time for them to rest. Glancing outside, he tells Hela they need to set up camp for the night. They descend to the riverside and cook a delectable steak. Ragnar distributes the meat to everyone. While offering it to Ciri, he proposes she join Idun's legion as well, allowing him to mentor her consistently. Ciri blushes but politely declines, asserting her loyalty to her current legion must come first. The following morning, they arrive at the rugged cliffs where griffins roam freely. Ragnar prepared the bait by enchanting their horse to amplify its scent. It becomes evident that griffins have an affinity for horseflesh. Moments later, 3 griffins charge out, zeroing in on the bait. Ragnar states he'll observe from the sidelines as Ciri and Taiho shift into battle stance. She readies her crossbow with 3 arrows while Taiho unfurls his cloak, transforming into a formidable falcon. The girls are caught off guard. They expected him to ride one of them, leading to disappointment. Ragnar remarks he should have told him to go into battle mounted on one. Held blushes and insists it's not what it seems. Now, Taiho stands against 3 griffins, with one beast locking its eyes on him. Taiho demonstrates his cunning intelligence. Instead of going full berserker, he opts for strategy, dodging the attack and climbing higher. As this oversized bird brain pursues Taiho through the sky, Ciri down below lines up her shot. She knocks 3 arrows, each tipped with paralyzing poison. All 3 arrows find their targets, just like that. One griffin spirals down, yet Taiho seeks the special one. The hunt is on. Suddenly, a thunderous roar shakes the air, likely awakening every creature within a 50-mile radius. The alpha griffin has joined the fray. Folks, this creature is colossal, twice the size of its kin. It awaits the horse meat it was promised, but suddenly doubts arise. Has he been neglected while the others feast? He decides to investigate. Meanwhile, the group took down the rest of the griffins. He ponders if those bastards left him out, devouring it without him, so he resolves to investigate for himself. Meanwhile, the group had vanquished all the griffins. Ragnar declares, that's about it. Now, all they must do is anticipate the arrival of the big one. Tidal mounts one of the griffins and ascends into the sky. After a short while, he hears the atmosphere shift as birds flee in alarm. Ragnar warns him to brace himself and hands Chio a magical rope. Enchanted to suppress power and resistance, the alpha makes its move, and man, this creature is incredibly fast. The fact that Taiho is riding his partner just complicates matters. It lunges for Taiho, but our hero blurs in midair, transforming into a falcon before the alpha can reach him. The griffin is like, what the heck, yet quickly thinks. Hawkmeat isn't so bad either, and charges again. Taiho waits for the last moment before shifting back into human form. Without wasting a second, He lands squarely on the griffin's back, securing the magical rope around its neck. This beast is a tough opponent. It won't surrender easily. It thinks, I cannot be defeated by this mere human. However, it soon finds our boy troublesome, and Ragnar's rope begins to take effect. Seizing the moment, he draws his sword since his last conflict. His synchronization with his character has climbed to 20%, upgrading his Saga warrior sword, activating the blacksmith saga. His sword reshapes into a colossal hammer. He raises this weapon high and strikes the rope, tripling its enchantment effects. The griffin initially resists fiercely, but soon finds it can't muster any strength. Taiho seizes this opening and activates the Dragon Commander saga. The griffin, feeling the effects, perhaps enjoying it, Bro literally breaks the griffin down. Below, the crowd cheers for him. As Taiho descends with his new flying companion, he announces this creature's name is Rollo when Helda hears a noise. Everyone turns to locate the source. They spot an emergency signal lighting up the sky. Ragnar remarks that simultaneous signals are a bad omen. It indicates that a nearby unit is under assault. Helda suggests they separate, transforms into her swan form, and urges Ciri to climb aboard before she takes off. She warns Taiho against being foolish and to stay cautious. Taiho reassures her not to fret. Just then, Ragnar mounts Rollo, and Taiho thinks, this guy has some serious muscles. They soar toward the battlefield, barely crossing a few Mount Tons, and the once dense forest has vanished. Amidst the chaos, they spot the chaos. Two giants clash with Valhalla's warriors. Brax from Thor's legion stands strong against the giant. A giant charges at him wielding a massive war axe, and Brax meets it head-on with sheer determination. Ragnar leaps from the griffin, unleashing his divine energy, and in an instant, the giant lies dead. This guy truly entered the scene with flair. The battlefield erupts in cheers. Everyone understands what Ragnar's arrival signifies. Victory is all but assured at this moment. Then Tio commands his griffin to dive-bomb the remaining giant. The perfect timing crashes into the foe, providing Brax with the opening he desperately needs. Brax begins to glow, obliterating the giant's axe with a single strike. Then he leaps up and cleaves the giant's skull in two. Once again, cheers for Ragnar fill the air, but soon, they shift to chanting something new. They remember that the one who chronicled the Valkyrie was present too, so they start chanting his name as well. Tio is frustrated, thinking, enough with the dumb nickname already. He lands. Brax approaches Taiho with a broad grin and gives him the classic shoulder clap. Other warriors gather, inquiring about the Valkyrie he rode this time. Poor Tio has to inform them it was merely a male griffin, which clearly dashed their hopes of yet another legendary tale to spread. Yet Brax cuts through the banter, stating there's no time to celebrate. Another group is in need of assistance, and the war waits for no one. Ragnar instantly shifts to serious mode, demanding to know the situation. Brax explains they discovered another piece of a soul fragment. But just as they were about to seize it, the giants launched an ambush. The fragment wasn't lying unguarded either. It was embedded in the skull of a colossal boar, empowered by the soul's essence. This time, those bastards were clever. Rather than charge in recklessly, they split into 3 teams. 2 groups occupied Valhalla's forces, while the third focused on capturing the boar. Time to move out. Ragnar leaps back onto the griffin, signaling Brax to join him, but Brax replies, no way, I've got my own ride. He pulls tiny bones from his pouch, mutters some magical incantations, and the bones begin reconstructing into a small ram. Ragnar instantly recognizes it, saying Tangosr with deep respect. Brax commands the ram to grow, and the little creature begins to transform. Brax explains it's a sacred mount from Thor's legion, passed down through generations. Ragnar instructs the warriors to remain behind and care for the wounded. They start following the trail left by the giants. Taiho and Tangosr keep pace with the griffin. No trouble at all, and Ragnar can't help but comment on how swiftly this divine goat moves. Moments later, they spot the adversary. The giants have managed to down the boar, yet haven't secured the crystal. Ragnar surveys the scene. 4 giants, 100 orcs, and coolly declares he'll take on the giants alone while everyone else handles the rest. Benny charges in without hesitation. Meanwhile, Hela and Ciri finish their bout. Ciri asks her, now that they are free, should they assist Taiho as well? Hela responds that Ragnar is with him, so there's nothing to worry about. Suddenly, the sky shatters and a brilliant burst of light pierces the clouds, as something enormous begins its descent. At first glance, it appears to be a meteor, but as it draws nearer, Hela comprehends this isn't merely a celestial rock. She instantly realizes that whatever is on board that descending transport is far too powerful for her and Ciri to confront. Transforming into her swan form, she urges Ciri to hurry back to Taiho at once, back on the main battlefield. The orcs are beginning to panic as Tangosr smashes through their defenses. This charging ram obliterates everything before it, and even the most formidable orcs exchange glances, murmuring, "Hey man, are we certain about this?" Ragnar shouts at Taiho to concentrate on the boar. As time is dwindling, Taiho notices mages surrounding the beast, conjuring some seriously dark magic. "Hey, man, are we certain about this?" Ragnar shouts at Taiho to concentrate on the boar. As time is dwindling, Taiho notices mages around the beast weaving unsettling dark magic. He ascends on his griffin, soaring high before diving down, activating his new asana, Warrior of the Storm, and wow. This guy transforms into a human lightning rod, electricity crackles across his skin, bolts flying wildly, the mages are utterly destroyed. Bra witnesses Taiho's actions and joins the fray. More orcs attempt to obstruct him, but he activates his own Saga, causing his axe to whirl, releasing energy waves that obliterate everything in sight. Time watches, realizing Brax is entirely unstoppable. Then, chaos ensues. That meter we observed earlier finally hits its peak, creating a massive crater. From the dust and smoke, a figure emerges slowly, smiling in a way that sends chills down spines. With icy eyes, she scans the battlefield. This is one of the 5 generals of the Giant King, and her mere presence freezes everyone. No one moves, no one even breathes, except Tengoster, because he's a real fighter. He approaches her, standing directly in front of her, surprising even Harad. He tries to punch her, but Harad effortlessly erases it from existence with a single hit. The crowd stands in disbelief, especially Taiho, who's struggling to process what he just saw. Then Harad turns towards Brax, who is completely paralyzed by her aura. She raises her hand and unleashes a wave of energy. Taiho screams as Brax takes the full brunt. Suddenly, Harad bursts into laughter, claiming she never expected to see that face again. It was Ragnar standing in to block the attack. These two are well acquainted, and this reunion is anything but joyous. Ragnar coolly remarks on how long it's been since she left her fortress. Harad mocks him, saying he barely managed to withstand her strike, suggesting the great warrior has grown soft. She quips that it almost brings her to tears. Ragnar worries he needs to buy enough time for Taiho and Brax to escape. That's when the boar with the soul fragment suddenly revives. Blasting energy everywhere and charging straight at Harad, Ragnar seizes the opportunity. He shouts at Brax to move, but the guy remains stunned after nearly being vaporized. Then Taiho comes soaring in, extending his hand to Ragnar, but he merely grabs the bewildered Brax and hurls him towards Taiho, urging him to take him away. Taiho's confused, asking what Ragnar's plan is. Ragnar's aura flares as he simply says to watch. Taiho is about to witness what it truly means to be legendary, the guide who commanded seas unseen and never lost a battle. His name has been whispered through generations for good reason. He is about to experience a battle of the highest caliber in the new realm they will face, moving forward. We begin with Ragnar activating his myth saga, and this isn't just any saga. This is the grand one, King of Vikings, Ragnar Lothbrok. The boar is perspiring nervously, sensing what's coming. Harad charges her fist with energy and drives it straight into the boar's skull, obliterating it entirely. Only the crystal fragment remains. Harad kneels down to pick it up, but just before she touches it, her danger senses kick in. She narrowly rolls to the side, turning back. She sees Ragnar emanating a raging storm of energy. Grinning savagely, she charges at him, declaring this is the moment she's been waiting for. Ragnar's true form. The power gets her blood pumping. They trade punches, each blow creating shockwaves intense enough that even Taiho, watching from his griffin far back, can feel it. Harad thinks that although Ragnar appears weaker, his head would still make a perfect gift for the Giant King. It's only been 10 seconds, but in this brief time, their exchanged blows could take out thousands, if not tens of thousands. The warriors watching from the sidelines decide to retreat further as things spiral into chaos. Ragnar senses his limits and aims to finish it with one decisive strike. He sidesteps Harad's attack and swings his sword, but she dodges at the last second. This is dire since she was preparing her own devastating attack. Her strike barely misses him, but that was her intention. She aimed for the Vikings behind Ragnar. Essentially, she's playing dirty, hoping to eliminate him while he's preoccupied with protecting his people. Ragnar throws his body in front of the strike to shield the Vikings. By the end of it, Brax is barely clinging to life. Her remarks imply that if he had ignored those useless Vikings and focused on the fight, he could have struck her down. Ragnar lifts his sword from the earth, locking eyes with her, uttering, "Did I not instruct you to flee? What brings you here?" Harad ponders. Is this guy insane? At that moment, she senses movement behind her. Our hero Taiho returns, and Brax, muttering about being a god's offspring, vows to prove his worth. He leaps from the griffin, igniting his saga, and hurls his axe at Harad, the same furious strike that once cleaved a giant in two. Hara remains motionless, simply smashes the axe, shattering it into fragments. Yet, that moment grants Taiho his chance. He surges ahead, unleashing the ancient dragon cannon. Golden energy erupts chaotically. The battlefield is immersed in radiance, culminating in a tremendous explosion that likely altered the very terrain. Someone yells out Taiho's name as debris and dust swirl uncontrollably. Moments later, our hero Taiho claws his way from the wreckage, appearing as if he survived a blender's wrath. His body is battered and he's gasping, declaring he exhausted all his strength in that attack. His blue eyes scan the smoke, yearning for any sign of damage done to her, but alas, Harad strides forward, utterly unscathed. She chuckles, admitting he caught her off guard. Not bad for a kid, she concedes, in appreciation for his effort. She's now ready to unleash her full might against him. Oh, fantastic. Exactly what he needed to hear. Taiho's expression darkens, and he's breathing heavily. Murmuring that she emerged without a scratch, inwardly, he contemplates how utterly doomed he is. Ragnar steps up, insisting they must aid Taiho. Someone questions Ragnar if he should take action in his current state, yet Brax charges towards Taiho, calling out to him. Taiho turns in surprise, uttering Brax's name. Brax affirms he's joining the fray, his aura now massive, radiating sheer menace. The artist has truly outdone herself. She declares they can attack her with everything they've got. It makes no difference. Taiho, Brax, and Ragnar all charge at her in unison. While Hela arrives, shouting Taiho's name. As expected, things go awry, and Taiho finds himself ensnared. She declares this will be his final moment, questioning if merely stalling was his sole strategy. Her gaze sweeps the battlefield, pointing out that none of them possess the strength to make that tactic work. Ragnar lies unconscious, and Brax shares the same fate. Taiho strains against her hold, but she tightens her grip, asserting it's for his own good. Her flames blaze fiercer as she slams Taiho into the ground. Held rushes towards him, screaming his name. Meanwhile, we see an empty void. You know how these tales relish their spiritual awakening moments. Taiho drifts in darkness, surrounded by stars. He surveys his surroundings, wondering if he truly perished this time. Shu reassures him he's not dead, explaining that if he were, he wouldn't retain such thought. Back at the battlefield, Held cries out for him, weeping, pleading for him not to succumb. In the void, Taiho recognizes the blue-haired figure, calling her Shu. She acknowledges him, saying, that's correct, or more precisely, what remains of him within Guyel. She clarifies that Taiho can see her as a fragment of his soul, and going forward, she'll become his instructor. She reveals that Guyel chose him, which is why she's choosing him. 2. She vows to impart all of Ari's secrets to him, urging him to gather the fragments of Guyel to guide his path. She instructs him to seek her teacher. Meanwhile, Held is doing everything in her power to rescue our hero. She bites into the golden apple and feeds it to Taiho, praying for its effect, and it works. Taiho blinks his eyes open, but Harad swiftly approaches to close them again. The Ava reprimands her for having squandered enough time, commanding her to snatch the seed and retreat. She leaves the nearly lifeless Ragnar behind and strides to seize the seed. Taiho rises, making his way toward Hara. Held warns him to stay still, insisting that if he moves now, he'll surely perish, and she cannot bear to lose someone as dear to her. He counters he can't abandon Ragnar to die, nor does he plan to perish himself. Turning, he smiles, reassuring her he will return. He draws his dagger and attacks Harad from behind. She merely laughs, declaring his actions won't alter a thing as she swings her fist. Their clash reverberates shockwaves throughout the battlefield. Tio gives everything he has, yet ultimately he's thrown aside. Harad smirks, convinced of her victory. Suddenly, her hand begins to petrify. Before it spreads further, she swiftly severs her hand, gazes at Taiho, and demands, "What on earth are you?" Taiho forces himself up, even though his body resembles a wreck. Opposite him, Harad is enveloped in chaotic red and black flames. Fury burns within her. How could this battered warrior scratcher stand against her? The eerie purple voice urges Harad to retreat. She insists she cannot. He poses a greater threat than Ragnar. He's gritting his teeth. No, he's reached his limit. Yet that stubborn fool refuses to retreat. Tyra thinks, great, I'm in trouble. She definitely won't yield. And fighting like this is impossible. To make things worse, the purple entity boosts her power, causing her shattered arm to regenerate. She flexes her hand, instructing Tio to prepare for round 2. Held and Sur position themselves behind him, promising their support. Cho expresses gratitude, while Harad's madness escalates as she charges her attacks. This is precisely what she desired. Taiho and his team rush toward her, knowing they have no choice now. Taiho mutters that the heat is unbearable, claiming his body won't respond. Harad targets him first, lunging forward to erase his very existence. But just then, a flash of blue lightning cleaves the battlefield. Thor himself has arrived to save them. He apologizes to Taiho for his tardiness, while Taiho wonders, who in the world knows my name? Thor mentions there's time for shock later, but first, they must dismantle the domain. And his method is straightforward. He conjures a tornado. Ciri and Held breathe a sigh of relief as the domain dissipates. Thor warns everyone to get back. The fight is about to intensify. He hurls his hammer at Harad, sending her soaring into the air, cloaked in lightning. He pursues her with his hammer. He strikes her with a bolt of lightning, and she plummets to the ground while everyone begins chanting his name. Ragnar orders everyone to retreat, warning that if they get caught in the crossfire, they will perish. Tau, looking anxious, asks Hela if Thor will prevail in this battle. She reassures him that, with Thor's arrival, he has nothing to fear. But how can he not worry when there are foes of Harad's caliber lurking in the world? He thinks that to safeguard Helda, he must grow stronger. Meanwhile, Thor dominates while lying low. Harad ponders. How did Thor get here? But he doesn't want her to dwell on it. He charges at her as she deploys a smoke bomb. Thor scans the area for her. In the meantime, she asks a nearby vault if this was his doing. He nods, warning her that she can't defeat Thor in her current condition and vows to cover her escape with Veil of Night. She dislikes the plan as her lips emerge from the fog, declaring she is the Titan of Strength. She refuses to flee from the battle and absolutely will not perish like a coward. She then dares Thor to unleash everything he has against her. Thor summons his hammer, charges another lightning strike, and once again, they collide, illuminating the battlefield in a brilliant golden light as the scene unfolds. Har is on her knees while the thunderous boy remains unscathed. He lands on the ground and reminds everyone to like the video, assist Mamoru in creating awesome content, and activate that cheeky little bell, an amount.